The story begins with a group of people facing off against a formidable enemy deep within a dark cave. A teenage boy stood at the center, panting heavily. "It's finally over," he muttered. "Maze spell." In a flash, he unleashed a powerful surge of light from his hands. The radiant energy expanded outward, ready to strike at any moment. The opponent, seeing the attack coming, quickly cast a magical barrier to block it. The clash between the light and the magic circle created a violent shockwave. But it didn't hold. The light blasted through the defense and surged forward. In the blink of an eye, the monster was obliterated, unable to fight back. A massive explosion erupted through the cavern, as if it was about to consume everything in its path. Moments later, the system notification appeared in front of him. Maze difficulty cleared. "Thank you for playing the Abyssal Maze." The boy sat down and stretched his arms, clearly exhausted. Finally cleared it. "Man, the higher the difficulty, the more brutal it gets," he smirked, pleased with himself. Choosing a mage as my main was definitely the right call. One after another, impressive titles appeared on the screen. New difficulty unlocked, turn-based mage. He mused, maybe I should upload a guide video for this one. Suddenly, another message popped up, catching him off guard. "Would you like to challenge the developer's final difficulty?" The boy narrowed his eyes, suspicion creeping in. The final difficulty. Developer level. Sounds spicy. Let's go. The Abyssal Maze, final developer difficulty. Choose your special skill, reversed Hourglass. Unlocked by completing turn-based mage class. The teen blinked in surprise. "I've never seen this skill before, whatever. If I lose, I'll just start over." Still playing as a mage, no second thoughts needed. The character Calum appeared on screen. "Dump all 10 points into intelligence," he muttered. Without hesitation, he allocated all of his attribute points to int. But the moment he hit start, his computer screen suddenly emitted a strange light. What the hell? A brilliant beam of light burst from his apartment, radiating through the air. Just then, a sharp, high-pitched noise rang in his ears. "Hey, wake up, get up already." Startled, he opened his eyes to find a man screaming in his face. "Get up, you filthy criminal." The boy was completely stunned. Is he talking to me? He tried to stay calm, letting out a faint chuckle. "Okay, must be a dream. Criminal. What the hell is going on?" "I was just playing a game still." The man on the other side remained furious, his face twisted with anger. "You think this is funny, you psycho?" He spat, and without warning, the teenager was knocked to the ground. The man turned his back and stormed off, rage in his every step. "Whatever. Maybe it's better if you've lost your mind. You're going to die anyway." The boy sat there, dazed and confused, his hand reaching for the spot on his back where he'd fallen. Panic rose in his chest. Wasn't this supposed to be a dream? Then why the hell does it hurt so much? He glanced around, eyes widening at the glowing blue circle on the ground and the people surrounding him. A man standing high above them began to speak with a booming voice. "Everyone will be given a magic staff. You criminals have been brought here to serve as slaves. This labyrinth is your only shot at changing your fate. If you make it out alive, you'll be able to use the money you earn inside to buy your freedom. And if you want, you can even apply to our magic academy." Calum gripped the wand handed to him, completely lost. A labyrinth. A magic academy. This all sounded exactly like the game Labyrinth Abyss. His hands trembled, fear running down his spine. No way, are they saying I'm actually inside the game? This can't be real. Just then, a commanding voice barked out orders. "Teams, enter according to your assigned groups." A squad of 4 quickly stepped into the labyrinth entrance. Calum scanned his surroundings in panic. What the hell is happening? That's the character I just created, Calum. This has to be the same labyrinth from the game, which means the monsters in here are no joke. I need to get a handle on things fast, he thought. First, I should figure out the skills of the people on my team. Just then, a shaky voice spoke up behind him. "Hey everyone," a tall, skinny man in their group replied in a chilling, sleazy tone. "Easy now, no need to panic. A divine prophecy just descended." He grinned in a way that was both disgusting and terrifying. It said we're all going to die in here. Tears streamed down his cheeks even as the creepy smile stayed frozen on his lips. Calum was floored. Are you kidding me? These guys have totally lost their minds. Trying to snap everyone out of it, he shouted, "Please get a grip. Let's move slowly and look for an exit together." But before he could finish, a chubby man in the group broke down in a frenzy and bolted forward, screaming, "Let me out of here. Callum stood frozen, unable to respond fast enough. Damn it. Another one's lost it. We need to get out of here now. A horrifying sound pierced the air, and in the blink of an eye, a gruesome scene unfolded before them. The man had been instantly impaled by a barrage of powerful spears. A goblin stared in their direction with a look of ravenous hunger in its eyes. The man at the back and the girl beside him were completely shaken. See? I told you. It's exactly like I said. The spear really went straight through him. The prophecy wasn't wrong at all. Before he could finish his sentence, another spear came flying toward him. The grotesque monsters grinned hungrily, sending chills down their spines. The girl shrieked in terror, her voice cracking with panic as the horrifying sight paralyzed her. Callum stood frozen, unable to react to the chaos erupting around him. The monsters tightened their grip on their weapons and charged straight ahead. The boy's wide-eyed expression showed pure disbelief. No way, in an instant they were right in front of him, ready to strike. As the weapon was about to hit him, Callum screamed internally, "I'm dead meat." Just then, a system alert popped up in front of him. Skill activated, reversed Hourglass. Time freeze for 60 seconds. Action points 4. Auto activation triggered in emergency situations. Elegant, glowing symbols appeared in midair, leaving him completely dumbfounded. It's your turn. A red countdown timer started ticking down beside the message. Callum was in total shock. What the hell is happening? Everything around him had frozen, but the red numbers continued to tick down. He stared at it in disbelief. Did time really just freeze? Reversed Hourglass? What even is this? Okay, I've got a minute to rest. So rest already. He instinctively raised his staff to block the incoming blade. Instantly, his action points dropped a bit. The situation overwhelmed him. Wait, I just blocked and already lost some points. Crap, at this rate, I won't even have enough to dodge or defend myself. He let out a long, exhausted sigh. But then he paused. Hold on, if I can't move, how did I just sigh? That meant he could still speak, right? And speaking didn't consume action points. So, does casting a spell count as talking? Right then. The system chimed in again. You may now cast Fireball to counterattack. The boy stood there completely dumbfounded by this revelation. Then, the wand by his ear trembled as it pointed skyward, and his action points quickly dropped another notch. The countdown timer now showed only 6 seconds left. As the wand swung upward, the action points dropped even more drastically. Callum, trembling all over, gripped the wand tightly, as if determined to do something. Just as his action points hit 0, the countdown reached 3 seconds. 2 seconds left and the fireball had already been summoned. Turn ended. Reverse Hourglass cooldown, 60 seconds. A small fireball slowly formed at the tip of his wand. In a flash, it expanded in size, aimed straight at the approaching monsters. A massive, blazing inferno shot out, completely wiping them out in one overwhelming blast. The girl beside him stood in stunned silence, her tears halting midstream. What was that? She whispered. The fireball had incinerated the monsters that were just about to attack them. Callum clutched his own neck, panting heavily in terror. I almost died just now. What the hell did I do to deserve this? He gasped. Killed off like some nobody. If this place really followed game logic. Well, when it came to mages, there wasn't anyone who knew more than him. Still catching his breath, Callum slowly walked toward the girl, or rather, toward the 2 men who had been taken down earlier. First, let's loot a little. Then I need to find some reliable teammates, he muttered. Suddenly remembering something, he turned around and asked, Hey, what kind of spell was in that staff of yours? Looking flustered, the girl replied, It's a lightning flash spell. But I've never actually used a staff before. As she said it, her face grew even more panicked. Callum sighed in exhaustion. Well, still better than nothing, right? He quickly gave her a few instructions. You're gonna have to use it whether you've tried or not. If a monster charges at you, don't hesitate. Strike first. The girl nodded hesitantly. Okay, with no better option, Callum continued. Anyway, let's focus on finding a way out. As he walked, he couldn't stop himself from sighing over and over, drained and frustrated. Who the hell threw me into this nightmare? The devs? A god? Some damn cosmic glitch? Whatever it was, I have to survive, no matter what. Behind him, the girl shouted in fear, Then let me come with you. A few years ago, the labyrinth opened, and monsters spilled out, flooding the land. Countless adventurers and mages lost their lives as a result. In response, to train mages for labyrinth exploration, the authorities started throwing slaves into the maze, then selected a few survivors. This was the background story of the game. Still, there was no guarantee that everything he remembered was accurate. It was better to stay cautious. The girl beside him, trembling slightly, whispered, "Thank you for letting me come along." "I'm Yurnil." He responded in a low voice, "It's nothing." "I'm Calum." An awkward and painfully silent atmosphere settled between them. After a while, the girl behind him tried to ease the tension. "Calum, you're really calm and quiet. Back on the slave ship, you talked a lot more with the others." That comment took the boy completely by surprise. What did she just say? He clenched his teeth. Does that mean these people don't know I'm not originally from this world? I need to be more careful. Yurnil continued in a small voice. "I used to live in the Elven Forest and work at a delivery center. But it turned out that place was a front for drug trafficking, hidden inside the packages. I was falsely accused and couldn't afford the fine, so I ended up as a slave." The boy walking ahead felt drained. He knew she was trying to talk because she was scared, but still, "Yurnil, please, just be quiet for a bit." His blunt response left the girl stunned, and in that moment he seemed to step on something. A countdown timer appeared in front of him once more. Did I just trigger a trap? He stared in disbelief as the timer continued to tick down beside his hand. "Calm down first. I need to analyze the situation." Traps on the first floor were usually arrow traps fired from wall holes. Fortunately, there weren't any visible holes near her. Then what about my side? He quickly scanned the wall beside him, using up precious action points. Luckily, there were no holes there either. Looking up cost him even more action points. But the ceiling was also clean. So the traps in the floor. There are 4 types of floor traps on the first level. First, the spike trap. Sharp stakes shoot up from below, piercing and crushing the victim's feet. Second, the explosive nail trap with a wide blast radius. Both of them would likely get hurt. Third, the gas trap. Poison or sleep-inducing gas that lures monsters by using the wand as bait. Fourth, the pitfall trap. The floor collapses and drops the victim down to the second level. That one had no real countermeasures. The fact that the hourglass was active meant he had triggered a trap, and even if he could rule out the first type, there wasn't enough time left to come up with a proper countermeasure. As the countdown ticked on, the boy couldn't hold back his frustration, and let out a few angry shouts. This was seriously getting on his nerves. If lifting his foot meant triggering something worse, then fine, he'd just commit to stepping on it. Without hesitation, he pressed his foot down fully. His action points quickly dropped. He stepped onto another tile, and with that, his action points were depleted and the turn ended. The girl behind him stumbled over his foot and fell. She couldn't help but cry out, "Oh no." Panic flooded her face as she looked at him. "Why did you do that? You stepped on a trap." Calum responded calmly, "It's a pressure trap. If I lifted my foot it would have exploded. At least it wasn't a gas trap." Hearing this, Yurnil grew visibly anxious. "Really? I'm so sorry. What should we do now?" Calum quickly gave her instructions. "Do you remember that oak barrel we passed earlier?" She tried to recall, then nodded. "Yeah, I remember. Can you go back and bring it here for me?" Without a second thought, Yurnil took off in a fluster. "Okay, I'll be right back." Watching her retreating figure, Calum mentally calculated. This type of trap could be disarmed by placing something heavy on it. He just needed to wait around 10 minutes. But 30 minutes passed with no sign of her. Calum's anxiety began to spiral. Why hasn't she come back yet? Don't tell me she ran into another trap or a monster. His expression darkened as worst-case scenarios played out in his head. Was it reckless of me to step on the trap for her? Damn it, I should have just looked out for myself. Just then, a faint, strained voice called out from ahead. "Calum, I brought it." "I'm so sorry. It was really heavy." He had no choice but to respond softly. "No, you did great. Now, please place it right on the tile I'm standing on." "Okay," she replied. Calum pulled a wand from his belt. "All right. The distance is safe now," he muttered, switching to a wand designed to move objects. There might still be hidden traps ahead, so he needed to stay alert. Calum focused and used the wand to levitate the barrel. It lifted slightly off the ground, and then a massive explosion erupted from that spot, sending debris flying in every direction. After the chaos subsided, Calum let out a deep breath. "Let's go." It was a simple trap. Luckily, everything's still under control. Monsters and traps, there were just too many things to watch out for. Still, he hadn't lost hope. Thanks to the hourglass, he was the one holding the upper hand. They were still on the first floor, so with 10 intelligence points, his firepower was more than sufficient. What he really needed to test now was whether he could manually activate the hourglass. He also had to figure out whether casting spells like Fireball or Teleport like he did earlier would cost him action points. Just then, the figures of several monsters appeared in front of him. A faint smile curled on the boy's lips, perfect timing. The monsters grinned back as if excited for what was to come. Hourglass activated. It's your turn. The moment Fireball was cast, 1 action point was consumed. The spell had a 5-second cooldown, and the countdown began again. He stood there calmly and cast another Fireball. Again, 1 action point dropped. Each spell clearly consumed a point. When his turn ended, 2 blazing fireballs launched forward. In an instant, they blasted through the monsters like a wrecking force. The goblins were engulfed in flames, their bodies reduced to ashes. The boy glanced at his wand and did some mental math. Technically, he should be able to cast 4 fireballs in a single turn. Behind him, the girl watched with sparkling eyes full of admiration. Colum might have the innate talent of high-speed casting and silent casting. Either one is already rare, but you have both. But then, her face fell as another thought hit her. I'm still too weak. I can't even cast proper spells. I've only slowed you down, I'm sorry. Her voice trembled as she walked beside him. Callum didn't respond to her apology, seemingly unfazed. In his mind, she was useless both as a warrior and a mage. But if she was an elf, then maybe. For the first time he turned to her and asked, "You're Neil, how far can you jump?" Huh? She blinked, confused. You mean like jumping? When I lived in the elven forest, probably about 4 meters. Around that. Her answer stunned him. 4 meters. That meant her agility stat had to be at least 5 or higher. Wait a second, he quickly grabbed the goblin's bow they had just looted. Hey, wanna try using this? It's the bow that goblin was using. She accepted the weapon, looking a little unsure. Actually, I feel more comfortable with a bow. I used to practice archery sometimes back in the forest. Callum gave a casual shrug. That's perfect then. You cover me from range. I'll handle the close quarters with my wand. A wide smile bloomed on her face. Okay. I'll do my best to give you room to cast freely. Callum looked down at the armful of wands he was carrying and let out a weary sigh. Figures I'd end up carrying all the wands in the group again. The girl's small hand seemed to move slightly. Moments later, a noise echoed nearby, and she quickly alerted. Wait a second, someone's watching us. He immediately looked around, reacting to her words, but there was no one in sight. Not a single figure appeared, nor was there any strange noise coming from the other direction. Confused, he responded, I don't see anyone. The girl, clearly panicked, insisted, I'm sure of it. There was a sound coming from over there. Callum furrowed his brow, thinking quickly. A sound? Could it be you're Neil? Try closing your eyes for a moment. The girl hesitated. Close my eyes? Why would I do that? But seeing no other choice, she eventually complied. All right, I get it. Once she was ready, Callum asked, can you tell how many stones just fell? And where they landed? The girl focused intensely. 3 stones, about 4 steps from here. The boy was visibly stunned. She was spot on. She had the ability to detect sound and determine the position or movement of a target, an ability known as sound perception. A recognized skill in the game. He pressed further. Earlier, how many people did you sense following us? Her voice trembled. About 4. They're getting really close now. Faced with the reality of the situation, Callum had no other option. He didn't know why they were being followed, but this had already turned into the worst-case scenario. After all, they were being tracked by a team, and all of them had managed to survive this long. The 2 of them quickly fled the area. Follow me. First, we need to find cover. They scrambled behind a large wall, hiding themselves in a blind spot. Footsteps grew louder, each one sending a jolt of adrenaline through their bodies. The sound of the pursuers closing in seemed to sync with the pounding of their hearts. As the group passed by, Callum suddenly darted out, yelling, "Stop right there." He raised his wand and aimed it forward, his voice sharp and demanding. Why are you following us? A bald man at the front shouted back, We're not here for you. His expression twisted into something grotesque as he continued, We're after the elf girl. Hand her over. The men on the other side gripped their weapons tightly. Just hand over that filthy little elf and I'll let you live. the bald one sneered. Low-level spells won't even scratch my armor, and those arrows of yours are nothing but toothpicks. A smug grin spread across his face. Trying to cast a spell. You won't even finish chanting before I put an arrow through your forehead. Though clearly startled by the threat, the two kept their composure as best they could. His voice echoed again, menacing and taunting. So quit wasting your strength and just give up already. Or hey, why not join us? Let's make it a party of 5. As for the elf, we'll all share her. Sound fair? The girl beside Callum trembled at the suggestion, her fear growing. Callum, she whispered. The man went on. Come on, wouldn't it be safer traveling with 4 strong guys like us instead of clinging to that worthless elf? Think about it. Callum had heard enough. The answer in his heart was already clear. No way in hell. At least with Yurnal he could sleep in peace. With these guys, he wouldn't even dare close his eyes. His face hardened as he drew another wand. That's enough talking. Get lost unless you're looking to die. The girl beside him smiled quietly at his defiance. Callum, the bald man chuckled mockingly. You're joking, right? Callum met his sneer with ice-cold calm. I'm dead serious. The man's smile faded. Then we've got no choice. He turned to his crew. Kill him. Reversing hourglass activated. Your turn has been used. Despite the danger, Callum remained calm. I gave you all a chance. The hourglass flipped again, time ticking down. You probably think I'm holding 2 wands for defense. But if that's what you believe, you're all dead wrong. Arrogant idiots. He glanced at the puddle beneath their feet. And this wand's lightning spell. Usually it hits 1 target at a time. But with water, that changes everything. Shock spell activated. 1 action point deducted. Electricity crackled, surging from the wand straight into the puddle. One of the enemies convulsed violently. Callum didn't pause, he followed up with a fireball, launching it forward. Once they drop their shields from the shock, I'll take them out one by one. Your turn. Time remaining 49 seconds. First strike, target the puddle. The next strike was aimed directly at the bald guy. The wand was raised again, cutting through the air with precision. A fireball shot out with unwavering determination, draining the final action point. With his energy spent, the turn ended. And just as the enemies began to recover, they were stunned by what happened next. A powerful lightning bolt surged forward, slamming into them with unrelenting force. Their agonized screams filled the air, and one by one, weapons slipped from their hands. No sooner had they begun to regain composure than another fireball was already hurling toward them. What the hell is this now? Someone shouted in disbelief. A massive explosion erupted, blinding and deafening them all in an instant. The bald man panicked, his eyes wide with fear. I can't see anything. Scatter. Get away from here, he yelled frantically. But just as he spoke, a blinding flash of light surged toward him. The blast sent thick clouds of smoke swirling across the battlefield. Off to the side, Callum swiftly signaled, "You're nil, shoot now." The girl carefully extended her long arms, relying on her heightened senses to detect every sound around her. Without hesitation, she fired a powerful arrow into the smoke. A desperate scream rang out from within the dense fog. The mist was too thick to see through, but her sharp hearing made all the difference. The young man quickly gave another command, "Take them all out now." He understood the urgency of the moment. His own spells hadn't recharged yet, and Yurnal had to take down at least 1 target. The bald man had already been hit by the fireball, which meant the rest were his responsibility. But his current ability needed 2 more seconds before it could activate again. Watching everything unfold, the boy gritted his teeth in frustration. Why do 5 seconds feel so damn long? Turning to his companion, he urged. Aim for the fighter first. My skill's almost ready. But to his surprise, the girl responded with slight hesitation. I already took care of them all. He blinked in disbelief, completely thrown off. Wait, what? But I only saw 2 arrows fly. As the smoke finally cleared, the scene became painfully clear. One man lay slumped, a deadly arrow piercing his body. Another had a shaft slashed clean across his neck, leaving him lifeless. 3 enemies. Only 2 arrows. How? He turned to the girl beside him, suspicion creeping into his voice. You're scarier than I thought. She flinched, flustered, rushing to explain herself. No, I was terrified too. I just tried my best to aim well. At that moment, the bald man, still conscious, let out a weak groan and coughed up blood. His eyes fluttered open in disbelief. Am I passing out?" he muttered as everything faded to black. From above, he cast a cold gaze downward. "Still alive? Huh?" The man below trembled violently, mustering the strength to speak. "Who the hell are you? You cast magic without chanting a single spell. What kind of monster like you ends up in a place like this? This world, it's just too damn unfair." Colum responded slowly, his voice icy. "Unfair? That's laughable. You brought this on yourselves the moment you tried to pull dirty tricks in the labyrinth." The man's voice grew more desperate as he shouted, "You think we wanted this? You think we chose this ending? We were expelled for not having magic talent, sold off as slaves. What the hell were we supposed to do? If I had even a fraction of your power, my life wouldn't have turned out this way." His voice weakened with every word, fading into a bitter mutter. "My life's just been one rotten mess." Calum's eyes stayed cold and judgmental as he looked down from above. The girl beside him finally spoke in a low voice. "I'm sorry, Calum, about earlier, when I said I took them all out." He replied calmly, "No need to apologize. We're safe because of you. Besides, that was your first time shooting a bow, wasn't it?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, it was the first time I aimed at a real person. And the first time I used magic on someone. But we had no choice, we had to survive." Calum glanced around warily. "Anyway, check if they're carrying anything useful." As he bent down to inspect the scene, a quiet thought crossed his mind. That was my first time killing someone, so why do I feel so calm? If this had happened in the real world, I probably would have fallen apart by now. But here, it doesn't even shock me. He remembered fighting the goblins, how close he'd come to dying. Maybe my mind hardened back then. Maybe something changed in me. But even so, he took a deep breath, the smell of blood and burnt flesh still thick in the air. "This stench, I don't think I'll ever get used to it." Suddenly the girl nearby called out, "Hey, there's a small backpack over here." "What kind?" he asked. "Looks like it belonged to another adventurer. Probably stolen by those guys." She opened it and listed the contents: a handkerchief, a holy book, a frying pan, bread, a knife, rope, and a wallet. Calum carefully checked inside and found an identification tag. Owner's name was Abison. F-rank adventurer. The girl leaned in, intrigued. "His face isn't among the 4 we just fought. Maybe he was the real owner. Either they killed him and took it, or left him behind and he didn't survive." She sighed. Even in a game, there are endless ways to die. Calum thought back. That bald guy, he understood the basics of tactics and positioning. What he didn't expect was that I'd use my ability and use the terrain itself to strike. If our roles had been reversed, would I have predicted that kind of move? No way. I'd be just as dead as he is now. Without the hourglass, I'd have been screwed ages ago. Relying on luck and power like this isn't really my style. The young man spoke softly. "You're Neil, let's keep moving." "Yes," she replied quietly. His expression turned solemn as he stared straight ahead. "I need a tight strategy, flawless, without a single variable left unchecked, because my life is on the line. It's time I accepted the truth. This is a game world. But for me, it's become a reality. I have no choice but to survive." Yurna was clearly exhausted by now. She lowered her head and quietly followed Calum's steps, struggling to keep up. He noticed it too and thought to himself, anyone would be drained after hunting goblins for 12 straight hours. He spoke up, "Yurnal, let's take a break." Just a simple sentence, yet it lit up her face like fireworks. Her eyes sparkled like stars. "Really?" She beamed. Soon a fire was lit, casting a warm glow over their small camp. The two of them sat beside it, resting and regaining their strength after the long trek. Yurnal pulled out a piece of bread and held it out with enthusiasm. "Calum, want some?" "Thanks," he replied and took the bread. As he slowly chewed, she suddenly spoke up. "Thank you for saving me twice today." He responded immediately, "Don't mention it. You're the one who did most of the work, Yurnal. Thanks to you, we even collected a bunch of mana stones." She shivered at the memory of that bald thug's creepy grin. But if Calum had accepted their offer back then, Calum remained calm. Why would I do that? Abandon a reliable teammate? Not a chance. That one sentence nearly brought her to tears. "Teammate, you should sleep first." "I'll keep watch," he offered. Without hesitation, Calum lay down, pulled up the blanket, and turned away, waving a hand. "All right, then I'll rest without holding back." "Thanks." A system message appeared, entered resting state. "Calum has leveled up. LV1, LV3. Calum stood dumbfounded in a dark void. Wait, I leveled up. So leveling happens while you sleep. Another system prompt popped up. Distribute 2 attribute points. Calum. LV3 strength, 0 agility, 0 intelligence, 10, 2 stamina stamina. 0 Hena stared at the stats. My base intelligence was 10 before I reincarnated. The extra 2 must be from those magic wands. I need at least 13 intelligence to break a goblin's shield. Then, let's go all in on intelligence. As soon as he made the decision, the system updated intelligence. 12. 2. A name flashed onto the screen. Urnil. Calum wondered, can I check party members' stats too? Suddenly her profile updated as well. Urnil. LV3 distribute 2 attribute point strength, 0 agility, 8-1 intelligence, 0 stamina, 0 dexterity. 2 Calum smiled. Urnil's stats are classic elf, fast and nimble, with high dexterity. That's impressive. Her attribute window revealed a special skill. Sound sense. Detects enemy number and position through sound. Bonus effect, immune to blind status. Just as I thought, a unique skill. Several stat increases followed. Agility, 10-1. She hit her max agility boost. Resting state ended. Calum sat up slowly, eyes lingering on the fading darkness. So, I really can't go back to the real world. He glanced over at Urnil, who was now groggy and sluggish. Urnil, your turn to sleep. Okay, thanks, Calum, she replied gratefully. She dove under the blanket with childlike eagerness. I've been waiting for this moment all day. Just then, she noticed Calum fiddling with something by the fire. Squinting through half-lidded eyes, she mumbled, "What you doing?" Without looking back, still focused, he answered, checking the area. This spot'll do. But her eyelids had already grown too heavy. Checking. She murmured faintly as sleep claimed her. Calum drew a wand from his belt. He chanted softly and pointed the wand straight ahead. Fireball. A blazing orb shot forward, obliterating the obstruction in its path. His face remained stoic, but his thoughts betrayed a glimmer of satisfaction. So, fireball's stronger now. Staring at the shattered remains of the magical shield, Calum murmured to himself, "Guess this really isn't a dream." The impact was so intense it jolted Urnil awake. Rubbing her eyes, she yawned and muttered in awe. It even broke through the shield. Before she could process what she'd just seen, her body gave in to exhaustion. Unbelievable, she whispered, then collapsed backward into sleep. Calum turned to respond but paused when he noticed she was already fast asleep. Let's keep moving once you wake up, he said softly. She must be completely wiped out. The campfire had gone out, leaving behind only faint wisps of smoke and smoldering ash. The two resumed their journey. Urnil, holding her bow, trailed closely behind. Calum, she asked, her voice weary, how long will it take to find the exit? No idea, he replied. They stood in a dim corridor, shrouded in darkness. The exit gate spawns randomly. It's all up to luck. And my luck, as a transmigrator, probably couldn't be worse, Calum thought grimly. I might be stuck grinding for a whole week just to find the way out. But then, to his surprise, his eyes widened in disbelief. Just ahead stood a glowing portal and 3 people guarding it. An exit gate. Already? But there was a catch. The 3 people weren't just standing around. They were armed to the teeth. Looks like pros, Calum thought, narrowing his eyes. Better stay sharp. The trio had noticed them too. Look who it is, one of them said. Slaves from the Magic Academy, huh? Calum kept his tone calm. Yes, we're not here to cause trouble. Just passing through. This is a little awkward, I know. The dwarf among them shot a look at the priestess behind him. Emma, when was the last time the academy sent slaves through here? Emma thought for a moment. Yesterday. Around 10 a.m. He stroked his beard. So it's been over a day and a half, and these two not only survived but made it to the exit. Impressive. His sharp eyes scanned the pair. The elf switched from magic to a bow. Smart move. Urnil flinched at the unexpected praise, looking suddenly unsure of herself. Then his gaze shifted to Calum, who still had both wands drawn. And you dual-wielding wands, huh? Confident. Calum answered without hesitation, I am. No need for fake modesty, the dwarf said plainly. You got a wand that casts fireball? I do. Satisfied, the dwarf turned to his teammates. Well, what do we think, Zekal? Zekal didn't seem thrilled. We can't just sit here forever. The priestess, hugging her book, offered a suggestion. He says he's confident, why not recruit him? Zikal still looked unconvinced. Confidence or not, he's just a slave mage. The three huddled to discuss. He's nowhere near Avison's level, Zikal said. Probably going to be a letdown. True, said the dwarf, but do we have a better option? Callum, overhearing the name, repeated it silently in his mind. Avison sensing an opportunity, Callum asked casually, the owner of this backpack, maybe? You guys lost your mage. The dwarf didn't deny it. Yeah. He recalled the moment that monster ambushed his teammate running into a black wasp on the first floor. That guy was the first companion he'd grown fond of in years, even if his skills were a little lacking. The cleric frowned and objected, he's not dead. I cast soul preservation on him. As long as we get a resurrection scroll, we can bring him back. The three began arguing again. And where are we supposed to get one, genius? We can't exactly step out and grab it. Callum pieced it all together. So they'd already found the exit. The problem was, a gatekeeper boss was standing in the way, and they needed a mage to deal with it. He eyed the three adventurers still caught in debate. If there's a cleric, then the boss probably isn't undead. A giant goblin? A fire drake? A mountain goat demon? They could probably handle those. His gaze sharpened. But if it flies, Urnal glanced at the bickering trio, then whispered, Callum, what now? They were obviously eyeing Urnal, their archer. Callum smirked, a cunning glint in his eyes. But what they really needed was a fire magic user with a wand. There could only be one answer. The boss was a venomous spider, Callum declared. All three adventurers turned to stare at him in disbelief. The cleric spoke first. How do you know that? Zikal scoffed. A slave mage who knows about venomous spiders? Give me a break. Only the dwarf looked at Callum differently now. You seem to know your dungeons. Callum smiled coolly. A little. The venomous spider, a brutal creature that constantly spits poison and weaves webs. It moves at insane speed across ceilings, trapping its prey in sticky silk. The webs slow and bind, one misstep and you're cocooned and done for. There was only one viable tactic. A fire-type mage with a wand strong enough to cast a powerful fireball to burn the webs, forcing the spider to drop. Then you kill it. Textbook strategy. Callum gave a sly grin. Now do you see why you need me? The cleric grinned with relief. Vertanen, I'm in. I trust your judgment. Even Zikal changed his tune. Me too. Whatever his flaws, he thinks fast. The dwarf gave a long, thoughtful look. Then, sharp-eyed, he nodded. All right. You two temporarily, you're with us. Callum's reply was swift and cold. No, all three were stunned. What? Even Urnal turned in shock. Callum, why? This is a great chance. He looked at her, his expression ice cold. A great chance. Sure, to defeat the boss. And then, the exit will open. His voice was eerily calm. But there's one detail they overlooked. Only 4 people can pass through. The word sent a chill through Urnal. Then, Callum stepped forward slowly. The gate becomes unstable with each person that steps through. Blue, then yellow, then red. After 5 minutes it vanishes. Only 4 people can escape. Callum's gaze turned hard. There's only one open slot left in their party. That's why they need me. He looked at them with detached clarity. In other words, they're asking me to leave Urnal behind. Tears welled up in her pale face. The dwarf was surprisingly direct. Didn't expect you to figure it out. I'm impressed. You're Callum, right? He asked. We weren't trying to hide anything. Honestly, I'm sorry about that. It'd be great if I could get both of you out of here. He raised a finger and furrowed his brow. But the truth is, we only need a fire-type mage. I truly do want to give you a chance to survive and leave this place, but can you really abandon your elf friend? Urnal's face darkened in panic as she stood behind Callum. She cast a fearful glance at him, silently pleading. His face was grim, lips tightly sealed. Deep in thought, he frowned. That's a tempting offer, he admitted to himself. Honestly, I'm wavering a little, but even if I make it out of here, I'll still be a slave. His hand trembled as he clenched his wand. I'll just end up thrown back into the labyrinth again. Looking at the 3 adventurers before him, a crucial question formed in his mind. Would these people ever group with me again afterward? No way. It was clear they'd just lump him in with another worthless group of slaves. Callum gritted his teeth. I won't get lucky twice. I'll never find another slave with Yurnal's skills. Yurnal is my teammate. He stated firmly, I will never abandon her. The three adventurers were visibly shocked by his declaration. Even Yurnal stood frozen, stunned by what she heard. A sly smile tugged at Kalem's lips. Instead, I have a counteroffer. How about you hire me? The dwarf blinked. Hire you? You mean you don't want to go through the exit, you want payment instead? He let out a hearty laugh. Interesting. All right then, name your price. Kalem raised one finger. 10,000 gold coins. Yurnal nearly jumped from shock. Kalem, do you even know how much 10,000 gold coins is? The dwarf's face darkened with irritation. But Kalem just flashed a confident grin. Of course I do. A flash of shimmering mana crystals and a huge backpack appeared in his thoughts. The mana stones and loot we collected on the first floor, if we sell everything, it should be worth around 2,000 gold. The slave price for Yurnal and me. 3,000 gold each. Kalem mentally laid it all on the scale: the treasure, the cost of freedom. With 10,000 I can buy our freedom, and still have some left over for protection. His demand triggered another round of loud bickering among the three adventurers. Can't we just pay him and be done with it? One of them groaned. Why are you acting like you're the financial expert here? The nun shot back. You cost a fortune yourself. Kalem watched the nun with amusement as she argued. Hiring a cleric's already known to be expensive. Seems like they're not exactly broke. Zikal rubbed his temples as Vertanen yelled in frustration. Can we wrap this up? I just want to go home. What, should we deduct the 10,000 from your share? Over my dead body. Try it and see what happens. They're at their limit, Kalem noted. They're desperate to get out of here. He surveyed the situation with a sharp, calculating gaze, and the most important factor on his mind was Avison. The man was currently having his soul preserved by a spell cast by Sister Emma. They needed to retrieve the resurrection scroll before the preservation magic failed and his soul and body deteriorated. So yes, they were in a hurry. That familiar smirk tugged at the corner of his lips again. It meant only one thing: they had no choice but to agree to his terms. The beastkin sighed, visibly annoyed. Seriously, what are you even worried about? It's not like we've got another mage lying around anyway. Kalem placed a hand holding his wand over his chest. And, to inspire trust, I'd like to swear before the sister. In the name of Saint Nathaniel. The nun's face lit up with a cheerful smile. Don't worry. A pact sworn to the saint can never be broken. Meanwhile, no one paid any attention to the dwarf's soot-covered face. He was utterly ignored. Then the dwarf suddenly blurted, 9,000 gold coins. How about that? Kalem smirked, 9,500. And so began the haggling. 9,309. 1,000. 500. The dwarf groaned, clutching his head. Gods, I'm really paying 9,500 gold for a slave mage. Is this what my life's come to? Still gripping his forehead, he muttered, fine. Just do it. Not like we have a better option anyway. Kalem grinned brightly. You won't regret it. I really hope not, Vertanen muttered, finally giving in. The nun clapped her hands together, still smiling. Wonderful. This way, please. She stepped into the center of the gate, joined her hands, and whispered solemnly, from this moment onward, in the name of Saint Nathaniel, I, Emma, sister of the faith, hereby establish this covenant. She recited the terms with deep sincerity. Vertanen, Zikal, and I agree to employ the services of Kalem and Yurnil for the sum of 9,500 gold coins. The pact will be fulfilled if Vertanen's party successfully reaches the exit gate. If either party is wiped out, the covenant is void. Do both parties, Vertanen and Kalem, swear to this agreement? Facing each other, they both answered in unison, I swear. With that settled, Vertanen placed his hand on the gate. He pushed it open and took the lead, signaling everyone to move forward. All right then, let's go. Above the group of 5, thick strands of spider silk stretched in chaotic tangles, cloaking the ceiling in white. Kalem scanned the surroundings. It's too dark. I can't see a damn thing. The boss is probably hiding in the webs above. Then, out of the corner of his eye, something caught his attention. In one dark corner of the room were wooden crates marked with explosive warnings. He cautiously assessed them. A few neutral-looking objects were tucked away in the corners, and they were all packed with explosives. Vertanen, walking up front, called out, Watch your step, those web traps on the floor will stick to you like hell if you trigger him. Callum was still observing the space while speaking. The real priority is to locate the boss. Vertanen glanced back with an annoyed grunt. Just torch the webs on the ceiling, alright? No need to act like some hero. And right as he finished speaking, a thunderous shriek echoed through the chamber, shaking the ground. All 5 immediately snapped to attention, eyes on the ceiling. In that very moment, a massive ball of spider silk came crashing down from above, aimed directly at the dwarf. He reacted swiftly, swinging his axe to knock the massive silk ball aside. Then he turned around, pointed toward the ceiling, and barked, "Now." Fire magic hit the ceiling mage. "Force that thing down here." From above, the black spider with its blood-red eyes began launching silk bombs like cannonballs. Callum gritted his teeth, thinking quickly. It's coming in hard. If it exposes itself like this, we've got a real shot. He locked in his focus. This kind of opportunity won't come often. I need to deal massive damage in one go. The system interface lit up, activating Harglass. Your turn. Fireball. 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 Callum raised his wand, summoning 3 large fireballs. He pointed it skyward and shouted, "Fireball." Another system notification popped up, action points depleted. End of turn. The words had barely disappeared before the 3 fireballs, guided like homing missiles, shot up toward the spider on the ceiling. The first one slammed straight into its face. The spider took the hit dead on, exploding mid-air. Zekal stared in disbelief. 4 shots in one turn. How is that even possible? Even the nun blinked in shock. What was that? Vertanen narrowed his eyes. Was I the only one who didn't hear him chant anything? As flames rained down from above, Callum shouted, "Focus up, everyone. This is our chance. Based on experience, we can't waste a burst window like this." Urinal let her bowstring fly, loosing a rapid volley of arrows at the spider now roasting mid-air. But the spider's outer shell was too hard, every arrow bounced off the surface uselessly. Callum quickly assessed the situation. Hold it. Stop firing for now. Using a goblin bow on that thing is pointless. The spider, now a blazing fireball, slammed down hard into the ground, sending a shockwave of wind through their formation. Callum turned to the nun. "Sister, I need a magic shield." She nodded. "Understood." Callum began assigning positions quickly. The moment the shield went up, he shouted, "Move in." "Rookie, don't freeze up." The rookie snapped back, "I know what I'm doing, don't lecture me." The spider's claws slammed repeatedly onto the floor, echoing like thunder. Its crimson eyes glowed ominously through the dust and smoke. Zekal immediately charged to the front line, standing face to face with the monstrous creature. His gaze was steady, focused. With a powerful slash, his sword sliced into one of the spider's legs, a surprise ambush. The spider screeched, blood pouring from the wound, then crashed to the floor. Zekal swiftly retreated to rejoin the group. Vertanen's eyes narrowed. "It's about to blow. Sister, get ready." Sister Emma began chanting, "Constellation Shield." A radiant golden barrier appeared in front of the group, separating them from the spider. Callum watched grimly. So they knew this phase was coming. They prepared for it. He raised his wand again. But instead of shielding against the venom explosion, he acted before it could detonate. A blinding flash of light erupted, freezing it before it could go off was the best move. Ice Lance. A spear of ice burst from Callum's wand, driving straight into the spider's abdomen. The frost spread instantly, freezing its belly. "I froze the venom sac. Priest, fall back. And the dwarf, now's your window. Hit it with everything you've got." The nun turned, startled. "But," Callum snapped, frustrated, "hurry up, dwarf. Just nuke it already." The dwarf gave him a look and said flatly, "Look, mage. Normally this is where we throw up another constellation shield." But Callum was already on the edge. "Oh my god. Just do what I say. I'm losing my mind here, this isn't a damn game where I can just click a button." Vertanen didn't argue. He leapt forward. "Geez, you've got a hell of a temper, don't you?" With one heavy stomp, he launched into the air. From above, he raised his axe high, eyes locked on the downed spider. Then he brought it crashing down, shattering cleave. The impact struck like a thunderclap, dust and debris erupted in a cyclone of force. His axe sank halfway into the spider's split skull. It was done. The dwarf triumphantly raised his axe into the air, celebrating with his 2 teammates. Callum looked up, his expression complicated. Don't tell me they don't even realize, above them, a giant cluster of spider eggs hung ominously, suspended by silk. When the boss has venom abilities, there's always a small but very real chance of a second phase. The three adventurers were still basking in their victory. We really took it down. Even if it was just the first floor boss, that wasn't easy, one of them said cheerfully. But Calum remained tense, eyes locked above, scanning for danger. Yurnal noticed and gave him a puzzled glance. He raised his wand, pointing toward the ceiling. You guys, did you really just say that cursed line we beat it? The girl behind him tilted her head curiously. Calum, why are you still holding your wand like that? Yurnal, Calum said calmly, can you look up for a second? She did as he asked. Look up? Her eyes followed his gaze, and the moment she saw what was hanging above, she screamed, what is that above us? Vertanen squinted, shielding his eyes. Something's up there. I can't see anything, it's too dark. Then Zikal's face went pale. Above them, thick clusters of spider eggs blanketed the ceiling, hundreds of them. What the hell is this? The ceiling's covered in eggs. The group's mood shifted instantly. You've got to be kidding. No one said there'd be a second phase. Damn it, I've never seen this happen before. Calum snapped into action. Yurnal, roll the orc explosive barrel over here. Now. Put everything you've got into it. On it. She shouted, grabbing the barrel of alchemical explosives and shoving it forward with all her strength. It rolled across the ground toward Vertanen, who stopped it with his foot. Don't tell me you want me to throw this thing, the dwarf grumbled. Exactly. But I don't know where to aim just yet. Kalim turned toward the cleric nearby. You cast light weapon on Yurnal's arrow. She nodded. Got it. Reaching out, she chanted, shine forth, even in the deepest darkness. Yurnal, Kalam ordered, shoot it straight into the ceiling. Roger. She raised the glowing arrow and let it fly. It soared upward, illuminating a massive nest of spider eggs clinging to the roof. There it is, Vertanen muttered, eyes narrowing. The nest. Now that he had a visual, the dwarf didn't hesitate. With a grunt, he hurled the explosive barrel with all his strength. It arced through the air, landing perfectly just shy of the eggs and rolled to a stop. Calum locked eyes on the barrel, his expression firm with resolve. Now then, a familiar chime echoed. System notification, Harglass activated. Your turn. Fireball, Calum declared, raising his wand with overwhelming force. The spell blasted forward, slamming into barrel. Boom. The explosion tore through the cavernous room, a fiery shockwave lighting up the entire ceiling. Bits of egg and webbing rained down like ash. The three adventurers stood speechless. Another lightning-fast, incantation-less spell. Their brains struggled to process it. Did he just cast again without chanting? Their confidence wavered. Is it really that easy? Vertanen side-eyed Calum. He might be a slave, but this guy's terrifying. Who is he? Calum, meanwhile, stared ahead, mildly stunned. A giant glowing blue portal had appeared in front of them. The escape gate. He let out a long breath. We did it, it's finally over. Traveling with a competent group really does make a difference, but not being able to control everything like in a game, it's infuriating. Scratching his head, he remained silent. Zikal stepped forward, face dark. Hey, newbie, who the hell are you? His eyes held a strange mix of awe and suspicion. Back when you launched that poison spell, I thought you were trying to kill us all. You're seriously something else. Calum just grinned. Oh, that wasn't my plan. But if I'd thought of it, we could have taken the portal ourselves. He chuckled. I guess you outplayed me this time. The dwarf now looked at him differently. To be honest, I'm impressed, he said. Your skills are far beyond what anyone would expect from a slave. So, before all this, what were you exactly? Cullen thought back to his past. Nothing much. I was just way too obsessed with this game. Damn, what a trash game. Wait, what am I even saying? Embarrassed, he pressed his wand against his cheek and replied. I was just a slave at the Magic Academy. Stroking his beard, Vertanen nodded. Not ready to talk about it yet, huh? You must have your reasons. That's fine. They exchanged a look. Still, Vertanen continued. I didn't expect us to take down the boss without shedding a single drop of blood. We got lucky, really. I wasn't holding out much hope, to be honest. That confession startled Yurnal. Actually, he admitted, I only signed the contract because I figured you'd all die quickly. Fuming, she ducked behind Calum, while he just laughed it off. That's why the fee was structured that way. I'd say you got your money's worth. Vertanen narrowed his eyes. True, but we're not done yet. Calum responded bluntly. Right, it's not over. Vertanen frowned. What are you talking about? We found the portal. Callum smiled with his eyes closed like someone who held all the cards. Because payment has to be completed in the village. Urnal was startled. The village. Emma looked anxious. He's right. The terms clearly stated that your party must go through the escape portal. Until then, the contract isn't fulfilled. The statement left her completely panicked. But the portal's right there. Can't we just walk through it? She pointed at the glowing blue portal still hovering before them. The priestess spoke calmly. Unfortunately, any vow sworn in the name of holy justice must be honored to the letter. Urnal and Callum both had to go through the portal. The girl looked lost. But what if they don't make it out? Then the party will be considered wiped out, the priestess replied. And the contract will be void. She was visibly shaken by the response, practically spiraling. Callum looked at her standing dazed and overwhelmed and thought, no sane person brings 10,000 gold into a dungeon. The system is designed so that anyone who doesn't make it back pays the price. That's when Urnal suddenly turned to him, alarmed. Callum, did you know about this? He remained calm. Of course. High-value dungeon contracts are always paid out in the village. Zekal smacked his palm. Ah, no wonder that stingy guy only paid 9,500 gold. I should have known. Kinda surprising, but it adds up. The dwarf, visibly annoyed, responded to the jab. I was simply managing the party's finances responsibly. You're welcome. He ignored his teammate and spoke directly to Callum. Hey, rookie, with your skills it'd be a waste if you died here. Make sure when you get back, you pick that dwarf's pocket for me. The priestess crossed her arms, not too happy. You mean our pockets? Vertanen shrugged. All right, can we go now? Just as they were about to leave, Callum pulled the backpack off his shoulder. Wait, this bag, it belongs to one of your group members. It's Avizan's. All three heard and froze. What did you say? The dwarf hurried over to check. Avizan's backpack. Mem, no wonder it looks familiar. But what about his body? We never found it. We picked up this bag from another slave who fought us. Emma covered her mouth in surprise. Oh my god, that really happened. The beastman beside her was just as shocked. It's possible. Vertanen looked up. I guess you want something in return for giving it back. Callum smiled. Just the bag. Of course, minus the personal belongings of the deceased. The dwarf was stunned. You're not asking for money. He thought for a moment, then laughed. Alright, if you return Avizan's stuff, we'll hand over all our reserve supplies. They're just dead weight now anyway. He began pulling out items from the bag. Callum was a little surprised. All of it? I guess you're not heading back right away, huh? But oddly, Urnal hung her head in silence. The dwarf answered the question. It takes time to get the resurrection scroll. Just as he finished, the priestess sheepishly added. But I already brought one. Callum was stunned. Wait, how come he went silent, reflecting on what they'd just said. Avizan had already died once, so they used the scroll back then. Avizan, you really should retire from dungeon runs. The dwarf glanced over. Honestly, you're 100 times better than Avizan. They laughed loudly. Right? We should have recruited you from the start. Good luck next time, though it'll cost more. The team was lively, except Urnal, who still kept her head bowed in silence. Suddenly she raised her hand as if she had something to say. Her small frame slowly stepped forward, still keeping her face down, hair shadowing her eyes. Then, can you let Callum return with us? All three on the other side were surprised. Callum also glanced back, confused. What? She bowed her head even lower. As long as one member of the party returns to the village, it counts, right? Neither side gets completely wiped out. Everyone fell silent, focusing their gaze on her. Urnal continued, Callum can receive the 9,500 gold, become free, and officially join your group. With the leftover money he can even upgrade his gear. Emma looked worried. Urnal, what about you? Even a skilled mage like Callum would struggle to survive alone in this dungeon. She wouldn't last a day. Urnal didn't speak but silently listened to everything. Her hands clenched tightly around her bow. Honestly, she hadn't expected to find another escape portal. Her tone grew firmer. At this rate, you'll die in the maze, Callum. Please don't stay just because of me. Urnal recalled the greedy, covetous gazes of the goblins. I would have died long ago if I went alone. Or that terrifying, muscular slave. It's thanks to you that I'm still alive. The young boy looked a little dazed at her words. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked up and spoke shakily. Thank you for coming, Callum. I'll never forget you. Live well. And always save a part for me. Vertanen suddenly grew somber, the elf. He spoke slowly. Usually, recruiting members from another party inside a dungeon is considered rude. Upon hearing this, she panicked. But in the escape room, he touched his helmet thoughtfully. I just thought you two were criminal slaves we could use to take down the boss, never thinking beyond that. I apologize. The dwarf extended his hand forward. But now things are different. I want to treat you not as slaves but as a real team. Therefore I have a proposal for both of you. First, Callum, if you agree, I want to officially invite you to join us. If you do, we'll share 25% of the profits and pay you 9,500 gold coins. Callum was surprised again. That's quite a generous offer. Yurnal held his hand tightly. Callum, I'm fine. I can take care of myself. She cherished his hand. I don't want you to die because of me. Suddenly a green light flashed above Yurnal's head as she cried. Please, separate the group amicably. Hourglass extension opportunity. If you stay by Yurnal's side now, her trust in you will reach 100%. Callum seemed shocked by this information. A lengthy notification popped up. Hourglass extension opportunity. If you stay by Yurnal's side now, her trust will reach 100%. If her trust remains above 80% afterward, you can command her during your turn. After your turn ends, Yurnal will voluntarily execute your orders. No way, is this an hidden skill of the hourglass? Callum looked at the dazzling light. Thinking back, in games, special skills upgrade differently depending on how you level up, and it seemed the same here. Gear effects activated along with the hourglass icon, indicating the skill upgrade was the ability to command party members. If he issued a command during his turn and ended it, while lost in thought, Yurnal grew increasingly impatient. Why haven't you gone yet? That meant Yurnal would act immediately after being commanded. Of course, Callum guessed he couldn't command her beyond her limits. Imagining otherwise felt illogical, like holding your breath while immortal. The commands he could issue would likely be simple actions. He decided to order her, Yurnal, lower your shield and shoot the spider. In terms of action points, it would probably cost just one. The dwarf group never obeyed commands, but Yurnal would act right after his turn ended. Callum smiled slightly in his memory. Considering one action point could affect the whole battle, this is pretty good. Hoi ChatGPT Vertanen stroked his red beard and asked, So Callum, what do you think? Callum bit his lip, trying to buy some time. Wait, let me think a bit more. The hourglass activated, and a notification popped up. Hourglass activated, it's your turn. Callum closed his eyes, weighing which choice would bring the greatest benefit. He didn't know what butterfly effect would result from this decision, so he had to be very careful. Should he upgrade the hourglass and keep the talented archer Yurnal, boosting her confidence with every bow shot, or embark on a new journey with the three experienced adventurers and a hefty sum of gold? If he left the dungeon now, he could escape slavery and join a seasoned group with the dwarf. A new notification appeared. Turn ended. Callum decisively opened his eyes, and his choice was clear. Grasping Yurnal's wrist, he said firmly, I appreciate your invitation, but my answer remains unchanged. I will leave this place with Yurnal as planned. The three of you should go through the portal. Hearing those words, Yurnal was deeply moved and started crying again. The three adventurers stared at Callum's decision in disbelief. Are you serious? Callum didn't waver at all. Yes, I am serious. Even if this were a game, I would make the same choice. He glanced back, thinking about the future. Investing in Yurnal was the smarter move, and honestly, he wasn't that cold-hearted. At that moment, Yurnal cried out loudly, Callum, are you crazy? Why wouldn't you leave? He sighed. I'm already stressed out enough, so please be quiet. It's worse to coldly abandon them. Solving everything together will make me feel lighter. Zekel stepped forward, tears in his eyes no less than Yurnal's. You're no ordinary guy, rookie. I'm the real newbie here. Damn. The nun covered her mouth and whispered with a smile. This time the Magic Academy truly recruited someone exceptional. Vertanen looked at them candidly. Now I'm even more eager to have him on my side. Emma interrupted. Sorry to ruin the touching moment, but are you two planning to defeat the boss at the back gate alone? Callum took the chance to say, by the way, can we take the spider corpse? The dwarf immediately shouted, no way. That moment was one thing, this is another. Onseok, looking utterly unfeeling, groaned in disappointment. That guy was just like that. Then I'll buy it 1,300 gold off your 9,500. Hearing this, the dwarf laughed cheerfully. Fine, but make it 1,500. No less. They looked at the spider corpse lying on the ground and nodded. Suddenly he changed the topic. Hey elf, what's your name? Urnal wiped her tears and stammered. He teased her. The beautiful lady. Right? His words made her jump, shouting, what? It's Urnal. Vertanen winked and gave her a thumbs up. That's right. Anyway, beautiful lady, the sincerity you showed earlier was cooler than 4 rapid-fire fireballs. He tiptoed a little. So you two must survive and return safely. The dwarf approached and handed her 4 red potions. Here's a little gift from me to encourage you too. She accepted them sincerely. Thank you very much, sir. Zekel continued the farewell. I don't have much to give, but when we meet again in the village, I'll buy you a drink. Callum smiled brightly. Make that 2 drinks. The dwarf kept reminding Urnal, use them well. Beautiful girl, I told you, it's Urnal. The nun smiled gently and said, once you reach the village, find Sister Emma at the Nathaniel Temple. I'll be there to give you your reward directly. Thank you, Sister Emma, they replied gratefully. She offered a blessing. May Nathaniel's grace be with you. I will pray for your safe return. A soft golden light enveloped both of them. Thanks. In the game, blessings increase all attributes by 1 for 12 hours and grant immunity to curses and rot, right? Callum asked. The 3 stood at the gate, waving their goodbyes one last time. We'll head back to the village now. The beastman pointed at himself. Hey, I'm Zekel. Remember that. Emma waved goodbye. Good luck to you all. Meanwhile, the dwarf was busy fiddling with something. He pulled out a small round orb. Well then, goodbye. Information popped up. Mana stone, grade E. Using a mana stone at the gate counts as 1 person passing through, activating the next gate faster. Using mana stones is basic courtesy in the dungeon. He dropped the stone near the gate, which then glowed yellow. Vertanen stood before the glowing red gate. If you survive and return to the village, find me at the Adventurers Guild. He glanced back. I'm Vertanen. I'm certain you'll come back. I'll be waiting. Urnal sank down beside Callum as the gate disappeared before their eyes. She trembled and asked, why did you do that? Now it's just the 2 of us, how can we get through the exit gate? Callum looked at her, knowing hope was slim. But that confident smile returned. Don't worry. He slowly stepped toward her. 90% of my body is this game anyway. All the scenarios are already scripted, as much as possible. He took her shoulder firmly. Urnal, don't cry. We absolutely can do this. His face hardened. First, let's pull out that spider fang. Urnal closed her eyes to hold back tears. All right. The system notification popped up again, displaying new info. Urnal's trust level reached 100%. Command unlocked. You can now issue orders to Urnal during your turn. In the vast room, her voice rang out. Callum, it's not that I don't want to do anything, truly. Urnal stabbed the dagger deep into the spider fang. I'm ready to do whatever you tell me, no matter what. Callum smiled slightly. You could even be my shield if I asked. I don't mind. But she sat on the ground, pouting as she looked back at him. Wouldn't it be faster if we gathered materials together? Urnal, trust me. Callum stood there, arms crossed, directing her firmly. There's a reason for everything. Just focus on pulling out that fang. She turned back and bent over her task. Got it. He stroked his chin, deep in thought. I want to help too, but the success rate for getting materials depends directly on dexterity. He sighed, glancing at his dexterity stat hovering above his head. He's got 2 points more than me, and I have 0. Am I really that clumsy? While she gathered materials, he took a moment to check the system interface again. I need to review the skill expansion system. I have to strategize better for the next fights. The info panel popped up. Urnal's trust level is now 100%. You can issue commands to Urnal at the end of your turn, and she will willingly follow them. Difficult actions or commands against her nature may be hard for her to execute. Difficult or contradictory commands? He imagined one absurd order. Urnal, punch that stubborn dwarf right in the face for me now. Short-legged dwarf. She'd probably growl fiercely and kick Vertanen right in the butt. Or an even sillier command, Urnal, shoot 10 arrows while spinning 3 times. He furrowed his brow, calculating. I can already guess what kind of commands won't work. I'll test this after making my big decision. I need to see what Urnal can really do. Standing behind her, he watched her happily say, "I pulled them all out, Calum." He bent down to pick up his backpack. "Perfect. Let's go. I'll prepare poison-tipped arrows while we move." She ran over with two fangs in hand, beaming. "I didn't know I had this talent." Calum smiled softly. She had been crying just a minute ago. "We could die at any moment, but seeing Yurnal's innocent smile, it makes me glad to see her happy." He took out an arrow and combined the spider fangs with the elf arrows to create poison-tipped arrows. Holding the arrow against the two spider fangs in her hands, Calum said, "Yurnal, help me with this part." "Okay, but Calum, even if you make new arrows for me, I'm not sure they'll really be useful in combat," she said nervously, holding the arrow. Calum seriously pointed out the problem. "The reason you're not dealing much damage, Yurnal, is because of your equipment. The archer's gear is really important. Since we haven't found a new bow yet, at least we should use better arrows. Making a bow is hard, but arrows are different. The new arrows are oddly shaped poison arrows, spider fang arrows, and elf arrows. If we combine materials to craft and use these special arrows, even with a lousy bow, you can still unleash full power." Yurnal stared blankly, trying to imagine it. Without another word, Calum turned to leave. "Anyway, I'm counting on you, Yurnal." In the game, the success rate for combining items depends directly on dexterity. Yurnal's dexterity is low too, so I'm not expecting much success. Before he could finish his thought, she happily raised the finished arrow. "Like this?" Calum spun around in surprise. "What? How did you do that?" She cheerfully waved the arrow in front of him. "I just slowly stabbed it in, and it stuck." Looking at the arrow in her hand, Calum thought to himself, sounds easy, but if the force is off even a little, the poison pouch will explode, and he'll be dead immediately. The status panel appeared. Poison arrow physical damage, 7 to 9 poison damage, 60 to 68. Causes toxic gas in the target area that poisons creatures who inhale it. That information made him exclaim silently, "Such a waste. Don't use them until I say so. Just keep them safe for now." "Alright, let's go." The two continued through the dark dungeon. Should I try out the new extended skill of the hourglass? No sooner had the thought crossed his mind than the status panel activated. Hourglass activated, your turn time remaining, 60 seconds. Calum turned and said to her, "Yurnal, take out the water flask from your bag and hand it to me." The command was given, but he was surprised to find all 4 action slots still filled. "Huh? It didn't cost any action points." "Yeah, just as I expected. Because it's not me acting directly." A flash of light announced, "Turn ended." By then she had already taken the water flask out. "Calum, here it is." He asked her a slightly silly question. "Why did you suddenly get the water?" Yurnal, with an innocent look, thought for a moment. "It's a bit hot, so I thought you might be thirsty." He smiled, realizing she understood it that way. "I wonder how effective this will be in combat." Suddenly he noticed a group of goblins sneaking behind them. Perfect timing, the opportunity was coming his way. Status: Hourglass activated, your turn time remaining, 60 seconds. 1 action slot, turn gray, fireball. He shot a fireball toward the 2 goblins at the end of the hallway. "First, I'll take out one. Then order Yurnal to shoot the goblin's leg behind. End turn." She immediately fired an arrow on command. The arrow struck the goblin's leg as the fireball arrived simultaneously. The goblin screamed in pain. Before it could recover and look up, a wand was pointed straight at its face, and the fireball hit. After dealing with both goblins, Calum turned back and asked, "Yurnal, why did you shoot its leg instead of the head?" She answered honestly, "Because shooting the leg is easier to hit." Calum thought for a moment, watching her sincerely bow her head, and then he apologized silently to himself. If he gave Yurnal orders during his turn, she would carry them out according to her own will. He propped his chin on his hand, smiling with calculation. This feature was really useful. It could help in tricky situations like things only a girl could do, for example. Calum carefully analyzed all the information he had so far. At the end of his turn, Yurnal would act based on her own will, so difficult or contrary to character orders would be hard for her to follow. His sharp eyes scanned her as he recalled that the system had mentioned something like this before. He decided to run a simple test to see how it worked. "Yurnal, nod your head." The turn ended, and Calum sprayed some glue as he saw her blankly looking at him. As expected, nothing happened. But Calum was still curious and tried again. "Activate hourglass. Yurnal, dance any dance you want." The turn ended, and her feet began moving. She cheerfully danced in an adorable way, but the cold expression on Callum's face seemed to embarrass her, and she shyly stopped. His eyes blankly stared. So that's how it is. She lowered her head even more and apologized. Sorry, maybe I'm going crazy. Without a word, Callum walked past her. Let's keep going. The two continued quietly, one leading, the other following. After a while, Callum glanced back and saw the embarrassed look on her face. He picked up the water flask without emotion. Changing the mood was important. He issued a new command, activate hourglass. Urinal, before we enter the maze, tell me everything you know about me. End turn. The order took effect immediately. She tilted her head and began to speak. Now that I think about it, I heard people talking when I was still on the slave ship. They said the reason you became a slave, Callum, because of murder, right? The sudden question made Callum choke on his sip of water. Urinal asked worriedly. Are you okay? Callum wiped his mouth and cleared his throat. I'm fine. Then what else? At first I thought you were a scary person, but I'm glad you're not. I believe you have your reasons, Callum. His face twisted into a grimace, like a rotten fruit. Yeah, that's right. From the start it was a disaster. Urinal continued with her question. You said you killed a teammate from the Fox tribe. The Fox tribe, in the game's lore, are very skilled at magic and intelligent. A Fox tribe girl with a sexy figure appeared in Callum's mind, someone who often captivated others with her attractive appearance. But he was quickly pulled out of that thought by Urinal's strong reaction. She was sure that whoever died must have deserved it. Callum, the person I know, would never do such a thing without a good reason. Callum was a bit shocked by her response and looked away. That kind of fanaticism was something else. Sorry, Urinal. Without further explanation, Callum turned and continued walking. Much had happened already. She followed closely behind. You said before that you were a maze explorer in the Eastern Maze City, Urinal reminded him. From what she understood, they were treated like chess pieces. The Magic Academy always assigned one experienced person to each group of 4 slaves. Now she thought she understood why they divided groups that way. Having you here, Callum, I'm really glad. Callum silently listened and mentally noted the information. So that's what he was before being captured. The two reached a fork in the path. At that moment, Urinal suddenly noticed something. A portal leading outside appeared before their eyes. It was an escape room. Callum was quite surprised. He hadn't expected to find another escape room so soon. Finding it seemed lucky, but also made him uneasy. Just then, Urinal jumped up and pointed at a corpse leaning against the wall. Oh my God, look at this, Callum. The whole body was wrapped in a faint golden light. That face, it was Avison. They studied his peaceful expression carefully. Is this soul preservation magic? He looks like he's just sleeping. He was clean, his face pale, probably from a wealthy family. Callum immediately became more alert, scanning the surroundings. Of course, soul preservation services were so expensive that even slaves wouldn't dream of affording them. Urinal bent low to examine the corpse. But this is the first time I've seen one in person. His eyes dropped to the left leg that was cut off, with fresh blood still there. If we bring the body back to Avison's family, maybe there'll be a reward. But more importantly, he stared intently at the bloodied stump. Do you hear that? Like rotten meat recently. Urinal's elf ears twitched at some faint sounds echoing around them. Yeah, it's disgusting. Callum quickly pressed, what about the flapping sounds? She was frightened by the urgency. Flapping? I don't hear anything. Callum scanned the area carefully. Strange. If what the dwarf said was true, Avison was killed by a black hornet, a powerful monster, no weaker than the venomous spider they had met earlier. Then it wouldn't leave or hunt elsewhere, while it still had fresh prey here. He raised his alertness even more. Let's move toward where the sounds are coming from and check it out. But Callum, we have nowhere else to go. Urinal led the way. It's right here. A fat white larva poked out of an eggshell. So the culprit was the larva of the black hornet. Callum raised his wand but stayed cautious of the surroundings. The larva disappeared, leaving behind its young. If the adventurers killed it, there should be signs of battle. Callum still doubted. Only larvae remained. Strange. The two, with the larva in the middle of the vast room, continued speculating. Unless it had met something even stronger, the strongest boss of the first maze floor wouldn't just leave on its own like that. Suddenly, a bad thought struck Callum's face, darkening his expression. Wait a minute, could it be? Callum quickly turned and asked, has any adventurer gone missing recently on the first floor of the maze? Urinal seriously tried to recall. I'm not really an adventurer, so I'm not too sure. But I heard that a thief called the Backstabber has disappeared. Backstabber? Callum waited eagerly for more information. Yes, apparently he single-handedly defeated the Black Hornet after his whole team was wiped out. Why are you asking all of a sudden? Kaleem clenched his teeth, frustration rising. Damn it, no doubt about it now, he was angry. A thief was the worst type of opponent for a mage. This is trouble. Yurnal looked at him worriedly. What's going on, Callum? Have you ever heard of adventurers being possessed? She put on her usual innocent expression and tried to think seriously. Possessed adventurers? I've never heard of that. That makes sense. It's an extremely rare phenomenon in the maze. Even after hundreds of runs, there was only one time when a possessed adventurer appeared as the final boss of the first floor. Their eyes were blood red. That's the state when the adventurer's soul is taken over by the maze's master, turning them into servants. They keep attacking relentlessly, affected by an effect called madness. They can still use all their skills and magic just like when they were adventurers, but much stronger, making them very difficult to deal with. Callum put his hand on his head, complaining. No wonder we found the escape room so quickly. What a pain. His words made Yurnal's expression fall. Kaleem, tears welled up in her eyes. Are we doomed? Only then did Callum realize he had accidentally shown his panic. He needed to control himself. Don't worry, Yurnal. The situation is indeed tricky, but we can handle it. She wiped her tears. Really? Callum raised his wand with a confident smile. Of course. After all, I'm here. At a bustling tavern, laughter and mocking voices filled the air. That guy's always full of hot air, someone jeered. Virtanen, veins bulging with frustration, retorted, No, I'm telling the truth. But the others didn't believe him and scoffed. A mage who casts without incantations. Come on, get real. The tavern owner, arms crossed behind the counter, spoke to Virtanen calmly. Even just one of those is a once-in-a-century rarity. The dwarf beside him grumbled angrily. If you don't believe it, fine. The owner glanced at Virtanen with a look that said braggart, but softened quickly. Well, either way you made it back alive. That's what really matters. Wait a minute, Virtanen. A cold mug of beer was suddenly set down in front of him. What's this? I didn't order anything. The owner joked. Didn't you use magic without incantations to call it over? Drink up quick, lightning fast. No more nonsense, here's a toast to your return. Virtanen lowered his head, irritated but powerless to refuse. He grabbed the mug and downed it with a grimace. After a moment the owner resumed the conversation. What about Zekal? He's still inexperienced in the depths, but his skills are steady, Virtanen replied. Pride showed on the owner's face. Of course, I only introduce promising people. Give the lad some experience, and who knows? Maybe he'll become the next Backstabber. The dwarf, now a bit merry, laughed. Backstabber's a legend among first-floor adventurers. You must be joking. He's someone who can fill 2 roles in a second-floor team, but he's not quite there yet. They continued their chat, lamenting that someone like that was taken down by the maze master, a real shame. While Virtanen was still engrossed in conversation, 2 shadowy figures suddenly burst through the tavern door, kicking it wide open. The real tragedy is when an adventurer meets the Backstabber as a boss, one of them said loudly. Virtanen, you're here. A noblewoman, dressed in fine clothes, rushed in crying, followed by a handsome but stern young man. My son Avison, is it true he's dead? The dwarf jumped down from his wooden stool. I'm very sorry, but it's the truth. While searching for an escape, he went ahead alone and was taken by a black hornet. The noblewoman gasped, nearly fainting backward, and was caught by the young man behind her. I've begged you all so many times to take good care of him, the young man said urgently, looking at his mother. Mother, Avison's soul might still be preserved. He glanced coldly and added, calm down and listen to Virtanen. Of course, Avison's death isn't anyone's fault here. His expression turned dark and threatening. Surely you won't let this end in foolishness, especially with a Burton family member dead. You have a plan to rescue Avison, don't you? Virtanen met the icy interrogation. The soul preservation magic lasts a week, so reviving Avison is still possible. He stood firm, watching the young man. The resurrection scroll will be ready in 2 or 3 days. We plan to set out around then. The young man pressed again. The time is tight. How will you locate Avison? Virtanen pulled out a card bearing Avison's image. I'll use this to cast a tracking spell and follow his trail. So you found his ID card already, the young man remarked. Virtanen replied honestly, a genius mage found it for us. The other man remained somber but slightly raised his eyelids, murmuring, a genius mage. The tavern owner interrupted. Well, I heard it was a slave mage, one who can cast without incantations, and even super fast. The mocking tone in his voice irritated Virtanen. Come on, why don't you believe me? I'm telling the truth. The other man frowned. Now's not the time for jokes. Such a high-level talent, and yet just a slave. The noblewoman hurriedly added, Clarence, what if that mage is the one who brought the body back? The dwarf grew serious. It's possible. Their group only had 2 people. Clarence seemed skeptical. A slave group with just 2 members. Enough, I don't want to hear any more. His mother urged him, this isn't the time to stand here talking, Clarence. She looked at her son with resolve. No matter the cost, I will reward whoever brings my son's body home. A few other patrons nearby overheard this juicy bit of information and smiled with crafty intentions. A chair was pushed back forcefully. My lady, a man spoke up, drawing the noblewoman's attention. How much are you willing to pay? He smiled confidently, hire us. We're currently operating on the 3rd floor. Unlike Virtanen's lot, we're no amateurs. At that moment, Clarence shot him a threatening glare. Silence. The sheer intensity of Clarence's presence scared the man, who quickly retreated back to his table. Clarence sighed. If mother tries to solve everything with money, she'll only attract the worst kind of people. Seeing this, the noblewoman quickly explained. But if I do nothing, who else will find my little son? The man made a proposal, I'll go with Virtanen. Virtanen was momentarily surprised. Really? If there's a 5th-tier mage coming along, I'd welcome it. The man coldly stared at him. He's my brother. The one who brings him back must be me. Besides, I'm interested in that genius mage. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Calum frowned in displeasure. Urinal, this isn't good. We should leave. Using the light from the flame to see, she looked at him, confused. Leave what? He continued, waiting for the dwarf group. If we do that, the larva will starve in the next 2 days. Their eyes fixed on the larva glowing with red mana. After all, it's the offspring of a monster considered a boss on the 1st floor. Its scent helps repel other monsters. But once the scent fades, they'll swarm. We have to move now. Furthermore, it holds great value in some way. Urinal worriedly suggested. Then maybe we should wait for the next escape room to appear. Callum held his chin, thinking. No. If the backstabber really is in there, a 1st floor level group won't stand a chance to pass. Waiting for the next escape room isn't an option. The best course is for Urinal and me to take down the backstabber ourselves and escape. It will definitely be tough, but we're not lacking in firepower. At that moment, Urinal lowered her head and suddenly spoke up. Callum, do you think we can really defeat the backstabber? A confident smile spread across Callum's lips. We can, but it's going to be very tough. Hearing that, she stood up abruptly. What? You say so, then I'll do it. Callum remained calm. Everything always has a way. His eyes gleamed brightly in the darkness. Right. Okay, then we'll have to use a pretty brutal strategy. Get ready. The scene shifted abruptly. An explosion sent flames shooting through the doorway. The intense heat scorched the air, creating a hazy mist. The goblins panicked as they stared at the sudden inferno. Then, from nowhere, a barrage of lightning-fast strikes crashed down upon them. Callum grinned with delight, raising 2 wands high. From now on, we train in hell. His lightning-fast action startled Urinal, who was behind him. His blood-red eyes shone with newfound joy. We're going goblin hunting like this. She was so frightened by that tears streamed down her face. What? Callum didn't respond, instead stomping and leaping forward with incredible speed. He continuously raised his wands, one summoning fireballs to scorch, the other lightning bolts to strike down entire hordes of monsters. Combining flames and direct attacks with his bow and arrow, the monsters had no choice but to endure without escaping. The 2 trained enthusiastically without rest. As he fought, Callum thought, level 5 is the limit for the 1st floor of the abyssal maze. We've just reached slightly over level 4 after defeating the venomous spider. The memory of the spider's corpse they had crushed still lingered. If we train hard for 2 days, leveling up is totally possible. They fought side by side. Reaching level 5 was crucial, because it marked a milestone for unlocking new skills. They watched the explosion they had just caused. A few magical stone shards bounced right in front of Callum's boots. We'll collect the most valuable magic stones and discard the rest. He glanced at Yurnal. Next we hunt the goblin priest. She looked downcast but agreed. Yes, their target was the goblin priest wielding a skull-topped staff who held magical scrolls. They needed to defeat him, and retrieve the most useful scroll. Colum wasted no time and pressed forward with the hunt. Don't lose the trail. This way. Though Yurnal wanted to cry, she obeyed. Yes, after their arduous journey they finally took some time to rest by a campfire to recover their strength. Callum looked at the girl lying on the ground and praised her. Good job. He looked at the scroll in his hand and said, looks like we're ready to finish this. Yurnal's eyes were spinning as she tried to report. Callum, the larva's breathing is weakening. It sounds even weaker than me. He appeared indifferent. It's still alive. But it'll definitely die by tomorrow. It hasn't eaten anything for days anyway. She tried to open her eyes wider. What if we use it as food for Avison? Callum was speechless, thinking to himself, things are getting pretty extreme now. Sorry, Yurnal. He stood up and used his wand to conjure water, pouring it into a wooden barrel. Damaging a soul preservation vessel is a very serious offense. But at least it's a relief we found everything we needed in time. Yurnal sat up and watched him. That's true, but what exactly are you doing now? The barrel filled with water and floating chunks of ice. Colum poured water into the ore's barrel, part of his plan. He smirked. Yeah, exactly. Almost done. Now, let's catch him. Yurnal was excited, finally arriving at the moment. She spoke enthusiastically. Colum, should we switch guard shifts? Before she finished, Colum wrapped himself tightly in a blanket and collapsed. I'll sleep first. Yurnal, frustrated and angry, couldn't hold back and let her mana surge. Callum always has his reasons? Huh? Calum, snuggled in the blanket, replied with a hint of nervousness, I don't have a choice, Yurnal. If I don't sleep now, I can't level up or plan ahead. He added firmly, yeah, Yarl, not much. But suddenly her attitude flipped 180 degrees when she heard him say, I'll keep watch for another 30 minutes during your shift. Really? Thanks a lot, Callum. That's awesome. She happily took the first watch. Go ahead and rest now, Callum said, sweating nervously because he was afraid. Unexpectedly, he seemed genuinely intimidating even when resting. But Callum smiled brightly and said, all right, wake me up in 2.5 hours. With that, he slipped into the system space. A series of notifications popped up. Entering rest state, Callum leveled up from 4 to 5, Yurnal leveled up from 4 to 5. A status panel with a dazzling blue light appeared, indicating that a skill could be selected. He glanced toward the exit door. Now, we'll enter the escape room. At that moment Yurnal hesitated, voicing her concern. Callum, I don't mean to say anything, but are you really planning to fight the boss dressed like that? Callum didn't want to explain much. Don't doubt me. What you see isn't everything, Yurnal. The fact remains we will defeat the boss. She looked at him with a mixture of confusion and resentment. I'm not saying that. I'm just wondering if wearing that will actually help. It turned out Callum had stealthily stripped the larva's shell and put it on himself. He said casually, of course. The hobbit eggshell is incredibly tough. Meanwhile, Yurnal covered her nose from the strange smell. What's that smell? Even the larva fussed, and seemed eager to return to its nest. Across from them, the exit door slowly creaked open. The two of them stepped inside cautiously. Sitting silently on a stone chair was a figure who gradually stood up as their eyes met. Callum raised his two wands and began to taunt, come on, you bastard. The opponent grinned wickedly, baring his teeth. In a flash, he vanished from the chair and reappeared behind them. He laughed maniacally and swung his blade. The system immediately displayed, your turn. Callum glanced back, unable to see clearly, but because the hourglass activated instantly, he knew the enemy had used a surprise attack skill to leap behind him. Gritting his teeth, Callum pointed his wand right at the attacker's face. I predicted your hit and run style and prepared my move ahead. Though the wand rested on his shoulder, Callum was tense. He unleashed 4 electric shocks first. Energy gathered at the tips of his wands, and at the same time Callum issued a command, Yurnal, as soon as he's shocked and falls, throw water on him. The system announced, action points exhausted. Turn ends. Hourglass reactivated. The electric shocks hit the man directly, causing him to stagger backward, though the paralysis seemed temporary. A powerful force was suddenly released from Callum's side. Urnal grabbed the nearby water barrel and hurled it onto the enemy. Water splashed down from head to toe, catching him off guard. Kalem began casting his spell. You're soaked now, hit and run ice spear. The problem was the ice spear only struck an illusion. The real body lunged forward like a lightning bolt. His entire form melted into liquid, escaping the attack, then quickly reformed. Kalem was stunned. He used a shadow jump. He was sure the enemy had expended all movement skills, and was on cooldown. Kalem slammed his wand against the eggshell. Urnal lifted the orc barrel. His wand emitted a green beam lifting the water barrel. Shoot and explode it. Urnal raised her bow and fired an arrow. The orc barrel exploded, sending water spraying everywhere. Kalem quickly cast Ice Spear again. This time the attack hit the target directly. The ground froze instantly. The red-haired man struggled to move but failed, grinding his teeth in frustration. Kalem smirked, scanning the entire frozen floor. The whole ground's iced over now. What's your next move? Probably silent step or wall walk, right? But before he could react further, a flash of light shot straight at his abdomen. The eggshell shattered instantly under the blow. Urnal gasped sharply, Kalem. She anxiously looked at him. Are you okay? I'm fine, he replied calmly. Thanks to the shell, I avoided any serious injury. Kalem glanced down at what had just struck him. It was a short blade lying on the icy ground. Surprising, using a thrown weapon from that close was almost like casting a spell. He calmly summoned it back to his hand, relieved that the impact had been reduced by the distance. The opponent gripped the short blade once more. Then his entire body slowly began to evaporate into mist. Kalem clenched his teeth, irritated. Invisibility next, huh? He scanned left and right cautiously, not forgetting to command Urnal locate the hit-and-run guy. Her beautiful long ears twitched. Instantly, the faint noise the attacker made while moving in invisibility was detected. Urnal raised her bow and aimed directly in that direction. Over here. Her arrow flew toward the hit-and-run man just as he leapt into the air. Moments before the arrow could reach him, the red-haired man gritted his teeth in frustration. He was forced to reveal himself to dodge the arrow. Though he narrowly escaped, his invisibility was broken. He reached behind and grabbed something hanging at his waist. With a decisive motion, he pulled it out. Kalem focused his gaze. It was a grenade. The hourglass cooldown was still running, but the system notified, hourglass cooldown per turn, 15 seconds. A confident smile spread across Kalem's face. No problem, this is the moment I've been waiting for. He pointed his wand at the larva. Ice Spear. In an instant, the larva's body exploded into pieces. Kalem smiled and switched wands strapped to his waist. I've leveled up, just waiting for this moment. Gripping the wand tightly with both hands, Kalem squinted as if aiming a shot, activating his special skill, Executioner Strike. The hourglass system lit up, showing, hourglass activated. Your turn. Cooldown, 60 seconds. Executioner Strike is a special skill that restores 2 action points every time you kill an enemy. A detailed notification appeared. Executioner Strike. Gain 2 action points upon enemy kill. Last 60 seconds. Must be manually activated and can only be used once per battle. Kalem grinned. To use this skill I had to share my food and lure that larva all the way here. The gears on the hourglass glinted as he prepared. The target was the ping-pong ball-sized grenade. He silently calculated the distance minus 10 meters. When still pointed straight at the hit-and-run man. Kalem knew he had to land the shot. Tension peaked. Please, just one hit, please. Electric shock. A new system notification popped up. Action points exhausted. Turn ended. The electric shock was unleashed as the turn closed. The high-voltage electric shock struck the grenade in the hit-and-run man's hand. It immediately exploded, engulfing his entire body in a cloud of smoke and flames midair. Kalem chuckled with delight. I did it, I really did it. I'm a special marksman in the ranks after all. He drew another wand from his waist and glanced at Urnal. His position. She pointed forward sharply. There, right there. Without hesitation, Kalem launched another attack. Ice Spear. He decisively struck the enemy's body once more with raw power. The man winced in pain, bending over under the barrage of attacks. At that moment, Kalem issued a command. He's frozen, so he can't dodge. Urnal, shoot. Quickly she knocked a poisoned arrow onto her bow. The arrow sliced through the air, flying straight at the enemy. He could only grit his teeth helplessly and take the full impact. Kalem exhaled, releasing his tension. Range isn't an issue, done and dusted. The poison pouch burst. Just one breath and he's finished. Poisonous gas quickly spread, filling the area. If their plan was right, he wouldn't last long. Calum watched him kneel on the ground, silently counting down the time. The enemy had inhaled the toxin and would lose 20 health points every second for the next 20 seconds. Calum seemed confident, though without a visible health bar like in the game. He knew the end was near. Don't struggle. Time's up, hit and run. But at that very moment, something unexpected caught Calum off guard. The spot where the man had collapsed suddenly flared with light. Tension returned to Calum's face. I knew I shouldn't have hoped for luck. Urinal plan B, she panicked at it. Calum gripped his wand tightly. I hoped this wouldn't happen. He stared at his opponent, whose chest glowed with an eerie red light. The reason adventurers get possessed in the maze is the most dangerous part. They still retain their special skills from when they were alive. Calum wasn't happy, but he managed to stay calm. Thankfully, this was still within expectations. The good thing about him was that he always had a plan B for every situation. He recalled the conversation before the two of them entered this room. Urinal, shoot a poison arrow first and see how he reacts. She had asked, shouldn't we shoot both to increase our chances? Calum had stroked his chin, deep in thought. He supposedly took down a black hornet by himself. That's suspicious. What if the rogue has a way to resist poison? Black hornets were vicious creatures. Even if this rogue had exceptional skills in agility, getting into a fight with one and not getting poisoned even once was virtually impossible. The image of green venom dripping from the hornet's fangs flashed through his mind. He must have been poisoned but didn't die. That's the real issue, Calum said. Urinal, seated nearby, voiced her curiosity. So, you're saying the rogue might be immune to poison? Calum looked up at her. No. If he's a rogue, he shouldn't be able to use magic. The red-haired guy had all sorts of trinkets strapped to his belt, bombs, potions, scrolls. Calum's analysis narrowed it down. If none of those were responsible, then it had to be a unique skill. There were still too many unknowns. Confirming whether the rogue could neutralize poison was their top priority. If he really can, Urinal gulped. Then, we're screwed, aren't we? But Calum gave her a confident smile, as if everything was still under control. No. That's what Plan B is for. The scene jumped back to their ongoing fight with the rogue. Calum's system flashed with a new notification, adrenaline surge, special skill activated. Restores 50 HP, resets cooldown on one level 1 skill, removes all negative status effects. The rogue's chest glowed as the toxins began to dissipate from his body. His eyes suddenly shifted, warped into something uncanny. Another system alert appeared. Cautious step, skill activated. He launched forward with erratic footwork, zigzagging like a maniac. Calum panicked. Shit. My cooldown still has 3 seconds left. Urinal bowstring taut, called out, Calum, should I fire now? But he whipped his head around and shouted, no, not yet. He calculated quickly. Since the rogue had triggered a movement skill, he would definitely dodge. To execute Plan B, Calum had to put some distance between the rogue and Urinal first. Without hesitation, he leapt, gliding across a thin sheet of ice. But the rogue reacted instantly, sidestepping Calum's lightning attack with unnatural agility. In a flash, he grabbed Calum's wrist and twisted it behind his back, forcing the wand from his grip. Calum screamed in pain. Then came the strike. The rogue's entire body pinned Calum down, one knee crushing into his chest as he raised a short dagger high with a cocky grin. Choking under the weight, Calum struggled, but stayed focused enough to turn his head and shout desperately, Urinal. The assassin shot Calum a wary yet furious glance, then instantly grabbed him and teleported. Dragging Calum with him, he leapt out of Urinal's line of sight. Calum looked down at the dagger now embedded in his stomach. Plan B. Urinal saw him getting stabbed and stumbled back in shock, screaming his name. Clutching the bleeding wound that had already soaked through his outer coat, Calum gritted his teeth and reached into the pouch on his hip. Damn, it hurts like hell. He uncorked a healing potion, his eyes never leaving the assassin. I have to use the one I took from the dwarves' party. But in a flash, a hand darted into his pouch and snatched one of the bottles. Calum's rage nearly exploded. Even now, that damn thief's habit hasn't changed, helping himself to my stuff. The nearly empty potion bottle slipped from the thief's hand and hit the ground. With a twisted grin and dagger in hand, the assassin lunged again. A system notification flashed, your turn. Calum grinned wickedly. Too late now, you bastard. He suddenly appeared calm, completely ignoring the blade inches from his gut. Thanks for walking right into my plan. Leaning back casually, he thought, this is the plan B I set up. I'll survive thanks to the potion's healing. So go ahead, shoot everything you've got. The first action slot grayed out. Kalen grabbed the scroll at his side. You can't kill me with just that dagger. The second slot grayed out. He untied the scroll. The third slot dimmed. Urnil, he called out with a gleam in his eye, it's time. Take this stubborn bastard down. Beaming, Calum said one final line. See ya, you leech. The turn slots emptied. The hourglass had reset. Callum bit down on the potion bottle just as the dagger drove into him, only to be stopped by a hardened magical armor. The assassin's surprise was clear. Callum locked his arm around the assassin's neck. Magical armor, dumbass. Never seen it before. A system notification appeared. Scroll of magic armor. Negates up to 5 physical attacks if each deals 100 or less damage. With the potion still in his mouth, Callum gripped the assassin's neck tight and tanked a flurry of stabs against the armor. Urnil now. A second poison arrow flew in a perfect arc and struck the assassin directly. Callum clutched his enemy even tighter and whispered in his ear, unfazed by the thief's distraction as the poison pouch began to rupture. Let's see what happens after the second dose. Grabbing a fistful of the assassin's hair, he growled. Now the real fight begins. The burst poison pouch released a thick cloud of spider venom, engulfing both of them in a toxic mist. From below, Urnil looked up anxiously. Calum, are you okay? The assassin, now poisoned for the second time, spewed blood in agony. Callum wasn't in much better shape. His lungs burned like they were tearing apart. If I don't drink this now, I'm done for. Suddenly, the assassin clamped down hard on Callum's shoulder, dagger still glinting in his other hand, poised to strike again. Damn it, this guy's still going strong. Once again he drove the blade toward Callum. But the dagger was stopped cold by the magic armor Callum had activated earlier, making the attacker's arm tremble uncontrollably. After a tense moment of struggle, the dagger finally slipped from his grasp and clattered to the ground. The assassin collapsed in front of Calum's stunned gaze, falling out of his embrace. But Calum too was staggering, his strength draining fast. Finally, that bastard's dead, he murmured, teetering on the edge of consciousness. As he dropped to his knees, Urnil arrived just in time. Please don't die, she cried, rushing to his side. Callum, voice barely audible, gasped, Yeer. Nil, heal me. Tears streaming down her face, Urnil poured a healing potion into his mouth. We won, she whispered desperately. We have to make it out together. Callum swallowed, wincing in agony. Even with the potion, it still hurts like hell. 3 empty bottles rolled uselessly across the floor. I miscalculated, Callum thought grimly. Even after chugging every last potion, the poison might still kill me. Urnil frantically rummaged for another bottle, sobbing uncontrollably. You're not allowed to die. Please, take this one too. Kalim looked at her with hollow eyes. I don't have a choice, I'll have to risk it. At last the portal to the outside world shimmered open behind them. With Urnil's help, Callum managed to stand, swaying on his feet. I think I'm alive, he said hoarsely. That final shot was dead on, Urnil. Hearing the praise made her even more emotional. Honestly, I was terrified it missed. The terrain blocked my line of sight completely. Callum offered a tired smile. Firing from low ground always reduces accuracy. That bastard probably leapt into the air for that exact reason, but I anticipated it, he continued. That's why I picked a level 5 special skill for you, pinpoint barrage. Once you lock onto a target, your shot ignores all obstacles and flies straight to the mark. Looking at his partner, who was still sobbing uncontrollably, Callum said softly, I believed in you, Urnil. And you nailed it. Really? She sniffled. I'm so touched. Suddenly, Callum's expression turned serious again. All right. Before we leave, there's something we need to do. Urnil blinked, confused. Do what? Callum looked toward the 2 corpses lying on the floor. The exit has 2 extra slots, right? She wiped her tears and nodded. Yeah, that's right. He took a deep breath and said, Then, let's let those 2 go free. The scene quickly shifted to the front of a wooden house. A mug of beer was set down on the table, and someone commented, You don't even drink. What are you doing here at this hour? The 2 people there turned their heads toward the voice. You're here to check on the resurrection scroll, right? Avazan's older brother crossed his arms, his expression sour. It's my brother's life we're talking about, so I have to confirm it myself. He stood up. The resurrection scroll you requested will be ready by today, so you can enter the dungeon around 5 a.m. Leaning back against the doorframe, he let the shadows hide half of his face. The soul preservation spell won't hold for much longer. If the rescue mission fails, not even another scroll can bring him back. I have to eliminate every variable and ensure success this time, he thought silently. Just then, Emma burst through the door, raising a scroll high in her hand. Everyone, she called. I've got the resurrection scroll. More importantly, we need to head to the dungeon now. They said the gate on the first floor has already opened. Her two teammates looked at her in shock. What did you just say? Avison's brother, still wearing his condescending expression, narrowed his eyes. Are you sure it was the first floor gate? Emma nodded, urging them, that's what I heard. We have to move right away. The dwarf was already restless. Let's go check it out immediately. Zekal chuckled, clearly amused. A newbie, huh? I swear I just heard a dwarf's coin pouch being snatched. The scene shifted again, this time to a dungeon where a glowing gate stood open, and someone seemed to be guarding it. Deep inside the underground command center of the Dungeon Alliance, a girl wearing oversized round glasses yawned loudly. This is taking forever. Why hasn't anyone come out yet? She sat curled up, hugging her knees, mumbling to herself. No chance needed. Instant summoning such crap rumors. Why do I even have to deal with this? A voice suddenly called out behind her, startling her. Has anyone come out yet? Vertanen and his group rushed over, asking anxiously. The gate's open already. Avison's brother, Clarence, stepped forward calmly. Hello, Professor. The girl put her hands on her hips, clearly annoyed. Clarence, I heard the news. You're here to see if Avison made it out? He remained distant. Yes, though I don't dare get my hopes up. Suddenly, someone shouted, something's coming through the gate. Everyone's attention snapped to the radiant portal. The professor turned to Clarence and said gently, I hope your brother's all right. Don't stress too much. As she walked closer, her eyes glanced backward, and she didn't notice the gaunt, corpse-like face emerging from the gate. When she finally looked, she was met with the face of a starving ghoul. She screamed in horror, tears bursting from her eyes. Avison's corpse dropped heavily to the ground, sending her recoiling in terror. What the hell is that rotting face? Vertanen's group stood in shock. Clarence rushed forward in panic. Avison. The gate flashed green, then shifted to yellow before hurling out another corpse with red hair, sending the professor collapsing in fear. Emma cried out in disbelief while Zekal stared in shock. That guy, they recognized the red-haired body immediately, the assassin. The professor's mouth fell open in fear. Half the people coming through the gate are dead bodies. What exactly is going on in there? Clarence kept his cold gaze fixed on the gate. Don't tell me those two actually managed to defeat the ambusher, he thought. A high-speed spell, cast without chanting. He recalled what the tavern owner had said, and the dwarf's irritation when people mocked the story. They said a slave mage didn't need to chant. Seriously, you still don't believe it? I'm telling you, it's true. Clarence swallowed hard. Could it really be true? Suddenly the dwarf shouted toward the gate, Kalem, is that you? At that moment, a foot stepped out from the glowing portal. A young man stepped into view, pointing awkwardly at himself. Sorry, I'm Urnal. But Kalem's right behind me. Emma beamed. I'm so glad you're okay. Zekal smiled so wide his eyes disappeared. That's our rookie. The dwarf clenched a fist and raised it proudly. I knew it. I had faith you two could pull it off. Urnal let out a sheepish laugh. Well, Kalem did pretty much everything. From a corner, the professor huddled, trembling. Wait a second, aren't you part of the slave group from the Magic Academy? Urnal smiled warmly. Yeah? Something wrong with that? The professor's worldview was crumbling. Even with a strong pair, taking down the ambusher should be nearly impossible. This is unbelievable. She stared blankly at Urnal chatting casually with the adventurers. A two-person team of slaves with cheap, worn-out gear, and they only formed the team a few days ago. How could they possibly pull that off? Just then, the red gate behind Urnal began to glow again. He perked up. Looks like he's coming now. A hand reached out from the gate. Kalem stepped through, a massive backpack slung over his shoulder. Cheers erupted on the other side. Rookie. You guys actually took down the ambusher? That's incredible. And you even brought Avison's body back. Vertanen's sharp eyes caught something. Wait, are you injured? Is that blood? Kalem's voice was cool and composed. Too loud. priest. He staggered suddenly, cutting himself off. 8,000 gold. He looked like he was about to collapse, and panic spread. Urnal rushed to catch him. Calum, please hang in there. The scene quickly transitioned to Nathaniel's church. Callum slowly opened his eyes, lazily turning his head on the bed. Hey, what happened? You passed out the moment you stepped out of the gate, someone answered. You collapsed from overdosing on recovery potions. You had to survive without an antidote somehow. Callum didn't seem fazed. Anyway, priest, my payment. Emma cheerfully pointed to the large pouch sitting on the table. Don't worry, it's right there. Want to count it? Callum opened the bag and started counting. What the why is there only 7,850 gold? I'm short 150. The priestess immediately explained. That's the treatment fee. Callum narrowed his eyes. I never asked to be treated. Emma chuckled awkwardly behind her hand. Well, Urnal asked me to do it. Callum looked like he was about to cough up blood. Urnal, you idiot. Why'd you stick your nose in where it didn't belong? Their conversation continued. So, are you going to the Magic Academy to claim your free citizenship? But Callum was more curious about something else. Hey, what's going on with Avison and the ambusher? The priestess paused and thought. Avison is currently undergoing treatment in the resurrection chamber. The revival process should begin soon. As for the ambusher's body, it was probably sent to the morgue. Callum frowned. He can't be revived. Emma put her hands together as if in prayer and shook her head. His body wasn't under a soul preservation spell. Sadly, there's no way to bring him back. Soul preservation is a type of magic that binds the soul to the body. Once someone dies, the soul remains tethered to the corpse for a week thanks to this spell. If the body is recovered within that period, resurrection is possible. Callum mulled it over, then added, but in the case of the ambusher, there's still a loophole. If the dungeon master had extracted his soul and sealed it in a jar like pickled kimchi, then that entire jar would be wrapped in magical energy. If it was bathed in golden light in a place like the Soul Sanctuary and retrieved from there, resurrection could still work. They say it's impossible only because they don't know the Soul Sanctuary exists, Callum explained. I only discovered it at the Divine Tier strategy level. After some time resting, Callum finally recovered. He slung his heavy backpack over his shoulder and bid farewell. Well then, I'm off. All right, said the priestess. May the blessings of the gods be with you always. The scene shifted to a vast campus, the Magic Academy. Urnal bounced up the stairs in 3 quick hops. Callum, are you feeling better? He answered curtly, yeah. Raising his hefty gold pouch, Callum declared. Then let's use this money to free ourselves from slavery. Urnal's eyes lit up like stars in the night sky. Finally. Yes, but the next news stunned her into silence. After calculating the figures, it turned out Urnal wasn't eligible to be released from slavery. What? Callum quickly asked. What do you mean? We should have more than enough money. Urnal, beside him, deflated like a noodle. The professor seated nearby slowly explained. The fee to be recognized as a free citizen is 3,000 gold coins. But based on each person's contribution, with dark circles under his eyes from lack of sleep, he looked at them and said, Urnal's share comes out to 2 gold coins. It was as if Urnal had been struck by lightning. And so, Urnal could not become a free citizen. Callum couldn't accept it. He spoke up, I don't understand. What exactly are the criteria for calculating and dividing the contributions? The professor waved his wand. It's a long explanation. Let me show you instead, it'll be easier to understand. With a flick of his wand, a magical scale materialized, one side labeled with Callum's name, the other with Urnal's. It was the scale of fair weighing, a tool that measured each individual's contribution during an expedition. Based on the testimony from the Viratanen party, the scale tipped heavily in one direction, Callum 27,848 gold coins, Urnal only 2 gold coins. That, apparently, was her contribution during the escape room battle. Callum was stunned. This was a type of magic he had never encountered, not even while playing the game. He pointed at Urnal's side. Isn't that contribution value a bit too low? Urnal crafted the weapon that defeated the ambusher herself. But the professor dismissed the point coldly. And what does that have to do with the Viratanen contract? Callum pushed back. Their entire plan depended on acquiring poison-tipped arrows to pass the escape room. If Urnal didn't have the skills to process the fangs into poison, they wouldn't have even proposed that contract in the first place. Urnal looked at Callum, her eyes brimming with tears. Callum, The professor's gaze dropped for a moment. You're right. Suddenly, Yurnal's gold count began to rise. The adjustment was now reflected on the scale of fair weighing. The professor turned back to Calum. Now, let's evaluate your entire adventure, from start to finish. His wand glowed and aimed at both of them. Truth detection magic. A warm orange-red light enveloped their bodies. A system window appeared. Truth detection magic. This spell amplifies involuntary physical responses when someone lies. The professor scratched his head and muttered. This is standard procedure for assessing the contributions of slaves. I ask for your understanding. You might feel a bit uncomfortable. Now then, please place your bags on the table, and recount your journey honestly from the beginning. Calum hoisted his backpack, setting it down. He turned back to look at Yurnal, who sat silently behind him, her head low and her spirit dim. I'll begin the report now, he said softly. Please, Yurnal, let's end this life of slavery this time for real. He took a deep breath, then steadied himself. The total earnings from selling the magic stones and the ambusher's gear came to 14,600 gold coins. That's equivalent to what a team of 4 could make clearing the first floor of a dungeon. He glanced toward Yurnal. The scale shifted slightly. Yurnal's contribution began to rise 2,925 gold coins. That was 20%. Even with all that effort, her total still didn't reach the 3,000 required. Calum clenched his teeth in frustration. Damn it, I thought I did well enough, and I only got 20%. Still not enough. Yurnal's eyes welled up. 2,925 gold coins. The professor looked at her. Disappointed, are you, Yurnal? He asked, rubbing his temples. The average slave earns no more than 500 gold in a dungeon, if they even survive the 10% fatality rate. That piece of information hit her like a punch to the gut. The professor went on. The fact that you're still alive, and that you earned this much has nothing to do with talent. Let's be honest. His words brought images flooding back. Calum's tense face in the dungeon, his unwavering focus. The truth was, she'd only survived by sticking close to him, trying her best to keep up. Even when she joined the battle with her bow, the reality was that all she'd done was fire 2 poison arrows. Meanwhile, Calum had put his own life on the line to hold off the ambusher. Anyone could have taken her place, as long as they followed Calum's orders. The professor lightly tapped the table. Still, he said, if you have objections to the payout, speak now. His tone turned stern. Yurnal lowered her head. I accept the decision. Kaleem flinched at the professor's bluntness. Sir, was it necessary to say it like that? But the professor wasn't finished. Calum, if you're thinking of helping her, don't. For a slave who's broken the rules, the dungeon itself is punishment. Then, the professor turned to him. Calum, are you planning to use your gold to purchase citizenship? Without hesitation, Calum lifted his hefty coin pouch and looked toward Yurnal's smaller bag. Yes. A flash from the wand shot toward the slave collar, and a notification rang out. Calum, 19,538 gold minus 3,000 gold. With a crack, Yurnal's collar shattered. Calum smiled in relief. The professor tucked his wand back into his coat. Congratulations. You're now a free citizen. That concludes the evaluation. Just then, the doors swung open. Calum turned to see 2 figures stepping inside. They grabbed Yurnal by the shoulders, making her flinch in fear. The slave will be escorted back to the cells, one of them said coldly. She's a decent archer. The Adventurers Guild will pay a good price. They dragged her toward the exit. As she was pulled away, Yurnal turned back, crying and calling to Calum, who watched in silence, a decision forming in his mind. I'll find her there later. The professor suddenly spoke again. More importantly, I have a question. Calum, have you ever considered enrolling in the Academy of Magic? Calum blinked, surprised. The Magic Academy. The professor extended a hand with a smile. We can't afford to lose a mage who can cast at lightning speed without even chanting. If you enroll, we'll give you full support in every way. Calum stared at the outstretched hand, realizing something. So this is how their attitude changes, now that I'm a citizen. He decided to seize the opportunity. With the mage population thinned by dungeon outbreaks, they couldn't afford to let him go. If I enroll, what benefits would I get? The professor stroked his chin thoughtfully. First, based on your magical potential, but before he could finish, 2 more figures burst into the room. Hey Jacob, is this the monster from the rumors? One of them asked. The other man, clearly shocked, added, "Professor Melanie. What are you doing here?" The short, stern-faced professor stood with his hands clasped behind his back. "A genius mage who can cast spells without chanting and do it at lightning speed," he said, almost in disbelief. Following him was the female professor Calum had seen at the dungeon's exit. "I'm exhausted," Calum thought. "But I need to see this for myself." Calum stood upright and gave a small bow. "Hello, my name is Calum." Melanie, haughty as ever, lifted her chin. "Good. I like the look in your eyes. Those flashy recruitment posters are meaningless." The grumpy professor cut in. "You may have just become a free citizen, but let me ask you this. What do you believe is the true responsibility of a mage?" Calum answered sincerely. "To develop new spells or to eliminate monsters in the dungeons." "Wrong," the professor snapped. "There is a far more noble purpose. To eliminate the possessed, those infiltrators from another world." Melanie's words made Calum's mind reel in panic. The professor continued, his tone heavy and serious. "For years, dungeon outbreaks have caused catastrophic damage. We've spent years investigating their origins to try to stop them. Hordes of monsters of all kinds pour out from the dungeon gates. But by tracking their movement patterns and the timing of the outbreaks, we've discovered one common cause. Humanoid figures. Tens of thousands of them. Possessed beings who've crossed over into this world." Raising two fingers, Melanie added, "If one of them stays outside the dungeon for more than 2 weeks, an outbreak is triggered to eliminate them. We don't know why," he admitted, "but regardless, they must be eliminated for peace." Calum struggled to remain composed. "Damn it, so even after gaining my freedom I can't live in peace." Then came the cutting smile. "According to your file, you used to be an adventurer in the eastern city of Wundum. You were tried and convicted for killing a teammate, Tamrecht. And your defense was that she was possessed, an invader from another world." That revelation shook Calum again. "Wait, she was really one of them." Melanie let out a sharp laugh. "Sounds like a perfect match. Let's skip the formalities, join my possessed hunting club. Unless," her eyes narrowed, "you're one of them yourself." That question silenced Calum. The professor gave him a forced smile. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" Calum was rattled, but managed to hold his thoughts in check. "Whew, good thing I didn't slip." He clenched his teeth, recalling the magic circle beneath his feet. "Because right now, I'm still under the effects of a truth detection spell." Calum remained silent, knowing the floor beneath him was enchanted with a lie detection spell. A voice urged him again. "Why aren't you answering, Calum?" Melanie's experienced eyes scanned him sharply. Strange. That question wasn't hard at all. Panic welled up inside Calum as a storm of chaotic thoughts swirled through his head. "Damn it, this is bad. How am I supposed to get out of this?" His pupils trembled, his composure shaken. "I let my guard down just because I escaped the labyrinth. I should have gathered more intel about this world before coming here." He cursed himself internally. "Now what the hell am I supposed to say?" Meanwhile, the professor pressed on with growing suspicion. "Don't tell me you're one of them too." But before he could finish, a knock on the door interrupted him, followed by it slowly creaking open. Clarence walked in with his usual indifferent expression. "Hello, Professor." He's probably still disoriented after escaping the labyrinth. "Isn't it a bit premature to recruit Calum right now?" Melanie turned, visibly annoyed. "Clarence? Aren't you that diligent little farmer who always reaps a bountiful harvest? More importantly, what are you doing here?" He waved his arms in frustration. "Even Professor Isilov lost you to someone else." Clarence continued walking in slowly. "That's right. At the Magic Academy no one overlooks talent." He glanced at Calum, then calmly said, "If we're talking about casting spells without incantations, and with incredible speed, doesn't he seem more suited for dungeon exploration than for hunting possessed?" Calum stared at him in surprise, while Melanie's expression tightened in irritation. "This brat's playing clever now." Clarence extended his hand toward Calum. "There's no need to decide right away. You're a free citizen now, Calum. Why not consider joining Professor Asilov's Dungeon Exploration Club?" Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing the room in soft light. Calum slung his backpack over his shoulder and followed Clarence out the door. "That was close. I almost died the moment I stepped out of the labyrinth." He exhaled quietly, feeling the tension ease. Talk about a lucky save. Then a thought struck him. Wait a second. If a convenient spell like that exists, wouldn't identifying the possessed be a piece of cake? Just chant the spell and find out, why go through all that roundabout questioning? He recalled the barrage of suspicious questions Melanie had thrown at him. Unless, that spell has its own limitations. The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he felt. Still lost in thought, Calum walked behind Clarence. I was way too careless earlier. Just then, Clarence stopped and turned to look at him. Looks like the lie detection spell has been lifted. He met Calum's eyes with a calm gaze. Sorry for the delayed introduction. I'm Clarence, a soon-to-be graduate of the academy. He gave a formal bow. And I'm also the older brother of Abyssine, the person you saved. Thanks to you, we were able to recover my little brother's body with ease. I sincerely thank you. Calum didn't respond with a greeting. He simply said, that event is also what granted me citizenship. Clarence replied with grace, we've been walking in silence for a while. I apologize for that. I thought it would be impolite to speak while that spell was still active. Calum replied bluntly, is that so? Clarence nodded and extended his hand again. Yes, most people consider that spell extremely intrusive. Clarence gently took hold of his chin. That's exactly why this spell is strictly prohibited from casual use. These days it's only authorized during slave evaluations. That answer only made Calum loathe Professor Melanie even more. So the spell really was restricted. That old man had clearly timed it to his advantage. Clarence, with sincerity in his voice, added, on behalf of Professor Melanie, I apologize for the earlier discourtesy. Not everyone here discriminates against hosts from another world. Raising 3 fingers, he continued. At this academy, there are 3 major factions. First, you've got Professor Melanie's camp, whose primary goal is to eliminate all possessed individuals. You've already met that stern old man. Second is Professor Asila's group. They advocate for guiding the possessed in exploring the labyrinth. And last, Clarence paused briefly, is Professor Dahlstream's faction. They believe those possessed from other worlds should be revered. He's the elven professor who seems quite kind. Calum raised an eyebrow. Revered? Clarence nodded slowly. Yes, Dahlstream specializes in ancient texts and forbidden tomes. From what I know, his research suggests that these possessed individuals are part of a larger conflict, one against the labyrinth's master. He's deciphered drawings and carvings along the maze walls, especially around entry points. His belief is that the labyrinth's master can imprison human souls and plunge them into madness, demonic entities that corrupt and dominate their victims. No ordinary human can resist them, except perhaps one kind of mage. Dahlstream is convinced that somewhere among the possessed, there exists a mage immune to that madness. A turn-based mage, Clarence added, causing Calum's mind to reel once again. Imagine it like an hourglass, Clarence said, gesturing vaguely. The theory is that this mage can halt the flow of physical time and act purely through willpower. He let out a short laugh. Not that I buy into it. Turn-based. What does that even mean? Just some scribble in a forgotten manuscript. And that faction? Probably only 3 people in it. Calum stepped up the stairs, muttering, you still call that a faction? Clarence chuckled, grasping a polished doorknob. Well, my professor is waiting. This way, please. The elegant door swung open, light flooding out from the room beyond. Inside, shelves of books stood neatly arranged. This is our club, Clarence said as they entered. We specialize in investigating and documenting everything within the labyrinth, from secret chambers to ecosystems, and even the monsters themselves. Right now our focus is on explorers who've been possessed. Not just hosts from another world, he added, gesturing toward a man standing inside, but those who are taken. Professor Isilov, a scholar at the Magic Academy, stepped forward and pressed a hand to his chest in greeting. These individuals exist in a strange limbo, he said calmly. Neither fully alive nor completely dead. My theory is that their souls haven't vanished but have instead been captured. Trapped somewhere deep within the labyrinth. Calum narrowed his eyes with suspicion. Even a professor like you has never heard of the Soul Sanctuary. The 3 of them sat around a small tea table in the room. Thanks to you bringing that sneak attacker out, I finally got this golden opportunity. I planned to track his soul to prove my theory, Professor Isilov said. His teacup was already half empty. Calum, you possess remarkable talent. You'd make a fantastic addition to our club. He clasped his hands together, a confident smile spreading across his face. So, are you interested in joining us to search for the soul of that attacker? Calum smiled. Tracking a soul. That's easy. I've done it plenty of times in games. But then he grew more thoughtful. Maybe I could even recruit possessed adventurers as teammates later. I wonder if that's possible here. Enrolling in the academy would definitely let me access the labyrinth more often. He hesitated. Best stay away from Meldini. As for Dahlstream, that whole worship thing is a bit much. This seemed like the most reasonable option. After some deliberation, Colum turned to the professor. In club activities, am I allowed to form my own team? Isilov looked slightly surprised. You're the first to ask that. Stroking his beard with a calm smile, he added, most prefer to join a seniors team. Exploring the labyrinth can be dangerous. But yes, you have permission. Do as you wish. Callum casually replied. Thanks, Professor. I'd like to join your club. Scene transition. Night had fallen. Inside the academy's dormitory, a professor with short hair began speaking. This is your room, Callum. You must be tired today. Get some rest. Callum replied politely. Thank you, assistant instructor. But something caught his eye, and his eyes widened in surprise. He stepped into the spacious, luxurious dorm room. What kind of academy dorm is this? It's too fancy. A glowing chandelier sparkled on the ceiling. The room was immaculate and far larger than any apartment he'd ever lived in. Turning back with a grin, Callum asked, Instructor, if I recruit team members, can they stay here too? The assistant instructor replied. Technically, no. But heavy dark circles and unenthusiastic face told a different story. If everyone followed the rules, I wouldn't be stuck doing overtime, right? Do whatever you want. Callum wasn't sure how to respond. She definitely had a sarcastic streak. I'll be going now, she added before leaving. In the bathroom, steam billowed around as his clothes lay tossed on the floor. Callum sank into the hot water with a content sigh. Melt away, his mind drifted to the face of the sneak attacker from this morning's escape with Urnal. The moment he collapsed in her arms, poisoned. The mission was completed, and he regained his freedom in one go when the slave collar around his neck shattered. Then came the professor he'd just met, his enrollment into the Magic Academy, and joining Isilov's club. Suddenly, Callum didn't feel so cheerful. Everything's been happening so fast. With a bored expression, he counted on his fingers. The library's open 24/7. I'll drop by there to gather some info, then head to admissions tomorrow, and after that go find Urnil. He leaned back against the tub, feeling like the tutorial phase had finally ended. There's still a long journey ahead. His eyes slowly closed from exhaustion. But for now, time to rest. The scene shifts to another place. The atmosphere in the classroom was now so silent, it felt almost oppressive. The young man sitting there seemed lost in a daze. I'm exhausted from studying all night in the library, he thought. But I have to be prepared. I can't afford to get caught off guard again like I did when that lie detection spell hit me before. Suddenly, a voice spoke from behind him. You're the first-year student everyone's been talking about, aren't you? He turned to see an elderly man with a cheerful smile approaching. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Dahlstream, the founding professor of the Magic Academy. Standing at the front of the class, the old man began explaining with a calm seriousness. Memory is a summoning spell that manifests as a book of memories, a unique type of energy granted through a contract with the God of Wisdom. If you sign the contract your teaching assistant handed out, each of you should now be able to summon your own book of memories. As he spoke, he raised his wand and gently summoned a small glowing light. Memory. In an instant, a beautiful book materialized in front of him, its energy swirling around his figure. Now, he said, summon your books of memories and check how many slots are available to you. The boy obediently followed, summoning his own faint green glow. Memory. A gentle green book floated in front of him. The number of slots in the book depends on the user's level. I'm at level 5, so 3 slots. Not bad. With a pleased smile, Dahlstream continued. The number of spells you can learn depends on how many slots you have. However, combining slots can allow you to create new magic as well. He gestured to the assistant beside him. The skeleton assistant over there will explain further. Forgive me, my back's acting up again today. The assistant, visibly drained with dark circles under her eyes, muttered under her breath, so much for an easy first day. Of course I got stuck with Professor Dahlstream. Exhausting. Letting out a sigh, she stepped forward and addressed the class in a shaky voice. All right. Let's head to the magic training grounds. There, she explained more seriously. The number of spell slots varies based on each person's abilities. Once you have at least 2, you can begin combining spells. For example, if you place 2 level 1 spells in adjacent slots, you might be able to unlock a level 2 spell depending on how they're arranged. This process is called spell convergence. The advantage is that converged spells don't take up regular space. It sounded advanced, but then she added, You can even combine 3 spells at once. Triple convergence is extremely difficult and the success rate is very low. But as she spoke, she conjured a sphere glowing with the forces of lightning, water and fire all at once. Her eyes reflected a determined gleam. If you succeed, you'll have a powerful magic that deals damage from all 3 elements at once. A tree elemental spell. In that moment she launched the spell straight at a scarecrow on the other end of the battlefield. An enormous explosion followed, as if threatening to blow the entire place apart. Everyone present, every single student was left stunned in awe by what they had just witnessed. The girl beamed with a cheerful smile. Pretty impressive, huh? If you work hard enough, you might just be able to tame a triple convergence spell too. She handed out a list. Here's a catalog of all available level 1 spells. Take your time picking. You can buy the books at the magic bookstore and learn whichever spell you want. Then, with a relaxed tone, she added, and if you need help combining spells, feel free to ask. Her expression suddenly shifted to confusion as she looked over the sheet he submitted. Wait a second, you already have 3 slots unlocked. And this is the combination you're going with. The boy nodded seriously. Is there something wrong with it? It's not wrong, exactly, but this. She blinked in disbelief. I really don't get the logic behind it. You chose 3 level 1 spells, a combat spell Dust Shot, another combat spell Heat Wave, and a support spell Moisture Control. She scratched her head, clearly flustered. I mean, it's your choice, but, with all the powerful options you could have picked, why those 3? And that third one? That's a support spell. Moisture Control just slightly raises the humidity in the air. Who even wants to learn that? Her voice rose in frustration. Support spells are supposed to be for practical use, like lie detection or binding. At that moment, an old professor slowly walked over from behind. What's all the fuss about? Oh, professor, she called out. Holding the boy's paper, she said anxiously, look at this spell combination. It just doesn't make any sense. The old man took one glance and let out a soft, knowing smile. Let him try it. That simple statement clearly startled the assistant. But Professor Buddy was firm. Curiosity and experimentation are the greatest traits of a true mage. This academy has always welcomed new approaches to spell linking. The boy stood quietly, absorbing every word. His expression gradually turned cold and focused. The professor's gentle smile lingered. I'm curious to see the result. Good luck. That night, back in the dorms, soft light glowed from the windows, spellbooks had been purchased, and the memory inscriptions were complete. It was time to begin spell convergence. He sat still, his gaze sharp and cold. Dust Shot and Heat Wave were the first to combine, producing Dust Burst. Memory recorded Dust Burst, level 2 spell. A faint smirk crossed his face. Those 2 spells, weak on their own, were nothing more than bargain bin magic shop fodder. But Dust Burst was 10 times stronger than an ordinary fireball. Next, Heat Wave Support Burn. The result, Solar Fatigue, habilitating spell that caused dizziness and heatstroke. Memory recorded, Solar Fatigue, level 2 spell. Finally, Heat Wave Moisture Control Fatigue. The result, Thunder Veil, a spell that summoned electrically charged storm clouds. Memory recorded, Thunder Veil, level 2 spell. A detailed status screen appeared, listing all of his newly formed spells. The boy held it in his hand, eyes glinting with satisfaction. A soft chuckle escaped him. It's been a while since I used this combo, probably not since that War God strategy mode. Thunder Veil summons electrically charged clouds. It's perfect for sandglass traps. I should get myself a lightning wand to pair with it. Callum leaned back in his chair with a sigh. Done. I'll stop by the temple early tomorrow and swing by the store while I'm at it. Then, a faint grin crossed his lips as he realized what came next. Now for the real part. The next morning at the Adventurers Guild deep in the underground prison, a voice echoed in the shadows. Come on out. A man gave a cold order to the girl standing behind him. Drug trafficking. Name's Mai Tui. Criminal. The Yernil slave girl stood with her head bowed, looking utterly defeated. From the other side, a man glanced over and said coldly, Someone's bought you to explore the labyrinth. Get going. She swallowed nervously. She hadn't expected to be sold off so quickly, and she had no idea what kind of people these buyers were. Most saw slaves as nothing more than disposable tools. Will I ever meet anyone kind again? She wondered silently as she followed the man toward the brightly lit hallway. Each step she took was filled with dread. If I'm thrown into the labyrinth like this, will I even survive? Go in, came the order. Yurnal bowed her head weakly, utterly drained. What's going to happen to me now? Tears welled up and began to fall slowly down her cheeks. Calum, I miss you. But then, as she lifted her gaze, her eyes widened in disbelief. Standing ahead was a young man she knew all too well. Her body froze, her breath caught in her throat, and then she screamed in utter shock. Her panicked cries startled the boy as well. What the? Hey, don't scare me like that. Still shaken, Yurnal stepped forward and fired off anxious questions. What are you doing here? Did something happen at the academy? The boy smiled faintly and replied. I couldn't just walk away from someone I risked my life to save. Calum offered a warm smile and reached out his hand. Come on. I'm going to help you become a free citizen. Though she was still in disbelief, she followed him out of the guild building. Her heart was a swirl of emotions. Calum, but I still have debt to pay. I know, he replied. There are 2 ways to make you a free citizen. First, we need to collect the compensation from Avison. His words caught her completely off guard. Wait, I thought that was already settled. We've only received an advance payment of 100 gold coins. Calum explained. Avison's brother Clarence said we'll get the rest after you return safely. But unless you're officially recognized as a free citizen, the Magic Academy still has the right to seize that money. He continued calmly, it's a bit early. But if I apply to claim the reward ahead of time, you'll get a share of more than that 100 gold. Before we do that though, just to make sure no one else can claim you, I'll temporarily register you as a party member. Then he added, next, join me in exploring the labyrinth. If we split the rewards afterward, you can use your share to buy your freedom. He looked at her with calm sincerity. The choice is yours. And here, this is a gift. He handed her the bow he had just purchased. Inwardly, he smiled. If she joins my party, it'll be just like the perfect scenario I imagined. Her trembling hands reached forward to accept it. He could see she was still uncertain. She's still afraid, he thought. If she's going to back out, maybe it's better to let her go now. Then her voice cracked with emotion. You're really going to keep exploring the labyrinth? Of course, he answered. Yurnal lowered her head, clearly flustered. I know I won't be much help, but can I stay by your side? She rushed to clarify her words. What I mean is, I want to be your teammate. Relief washed over the boy's face. Of course. I'm really happy to hear that. Honestly, I was afraid you might say no. With a slightly awkward smile, he added, this is great. Let's give it our all together. I've just recruited another new party member. His teammates' eyes lit up with excitement. That fast? Man, you're good at this. Come on, introduce her. I know I shouldn't get too excited just yet, Calum thought, but still. The girl was quickly taken back to the dormitory. Are you sure I'm allowed to stay in this dorm too? She asked. Of course, he replied. There's a bedroom and a shared living space, so make yourself at home. Yurnal walked inside with a cheerful heart. She changed into the clothes he had prepared, brimming with happiness. New gear, new clothes, this was pure bliss, even if she would have to pay him back later. But from now on, she'd get to sleep in a dorm that felt like a hotel. And on top of that, she'd be exploring dungeons with him. Alright, first things first, time for a nice, warm bath, she said to herself, her eyes sparkling as she looked straight ahead. But the moment she opened the door, she was greeted by the horrifying sight of a pale, zombie-like boy. Her joy instantly froze over. He was clearly caught off guard by her reaction. Yurnal calmed down. It's not what you think, he quickly explained. I brought this thing back from the temple this morning. Professor Isilov passed it down to me. I used a summon undead scroll. The undead creature growled lowly, sounding oddly uncertain. The boy chuckled. He's greeting you, you know. Seems like Sneak Attack is happy to meet you. Yurnal's face drained of color. I need to get out of here. Right now. Switching topics, Calum brought up a past event. According to Professor Isilov's records, there was a dungeon outbreak 12 years ago. It happened right here in Soan Dungeon City. That eruption caused massive casualties. Over 3,000 monsters appeared. Many of them came from the dungeon itself. The research shows a man named Henry, who had been possessed, was hiding in the southern slums of Sohan and triggered the event. The area was mostly abandoned, but he was eventually found and brutally killed. He held up a photograph. This is a message Henry left behind before he died. It needs to be decoded. He addressed it to everyone who has been possessed. It says, "Beware the Magic Academy." Calum stared at the photo, deep in thought. Why would he leave a message only the possessed can read? Maybe it's not just a warning. Maybe it's a sign something's seriously wrong at the academy. Even stranger, despite being the closest to the explosion, the Magic Academy took the worst hit. Why? Was it because they were the front-line unit? Or maybe, after the monsters finished off Henry in the slums, they moved straight toward the academy to find their next target? If that theory holds, then there could be a lot of possessed people hiding within the academy right now. And I need to be more cautious of them than even Meldini. He tightened his thoughts. No matter what, I must keep my identity as one of the possessed hidden. Just then, a trembling voice called out beside him. Callum Yurnil stepped in slowly, clutching her pillow like a lifeline, her expression dazed. Can I stay here tonight? Her eyes darted toward him, and she asked in a faint voice, what happened to your hair? The girl replied with panic bubbling in her chest. That thing your undead sorcerer made earlier. Let me borrow your head for a second. No way. Callum instinctively pulled back, unease rising in his chest. She's getting scarier by the day. Callum slowly stood up and spoke. If you want to stay here tonight, there's one condition. One condition, she echoed. Without hesitation, she tossed a few carefully stored scrolls onto the floor. These are scrolls I picked up from the black market this morning. There are a few things I've been dying to test out. You'll help me, won't you? She added with a disturbingly cheerful smile. Elsewhere in the Magic Academy, is the professor still not finished? He's buried under that new project, someone replied, turning around. The one about tracking the soul of a possessed adventurer. The professor nearby let out a weary sigh. Yes, that one. Finally found someone willing to take it on. You know him, Professor, it's that famous new student who's forming his own team to handle it. The professor's face darkened. Don't you think he's suspicious? You're telling me all that talent can be explained by just calling him a genius? I heard he stopped a poison sac from exploding by shooting an arrow at the perfect moment. And that's not all. He and a slave teammate took down a rogue assassin and actually made it back alive. That's not something an ordinary person could pull off. None of it makes sense, unless he's possessed, the professor muttered. Professor Isilov, our job is to identify the possessed. The quill dipped once more into the inkwell. But in this situation, what are we supposed to do? Are we really going to discard a gifted mage just because of suspicion? The man across from him shook his head. I don't want to do this either. But think about why the academy has such a severe shortage of mages. What caused that? The man's silhouette moved toward the grand doorway. His eyes gleamed with a quiet fury as he said, one mistake, just one, and we could lose everything, just like we did 12 years ago. I'll be keeping an eye on him. The professor inside fell into a deeply contemplative silence. Slowly the chair opposite him was pushed back. I understand where Professor Meldini is coming from. He once again turned to the window, gazing out with a pensive look. Still, we need someone who can regularly explore dungeons and support the academy. That said, I wonder how that boy plans to recruit his team. Not long after, a notice went up on the bulletin board, a recruitment post seeking a frontline warrior and melee fighter. The boy stood by the board, feeling slightly overwhelmed. There are more applicants than I expected. Normally, seeing a slave mage like me would send people running. Yurnil's trembling voice whispered in his ear, over here please, that undead next to me won't stop groaning like some rabid beast. It seemed the presence of the stealth unit had drawn attention this way. But if they're going to be teammates, I can't keep hiding things like this. Yurnil looked panicked as strands of her long hair got caught again. I told you not to yank people's hair, you creepy corpse. Then, the boy's calm voice cut through the noise. Looks like everyone's gathered. Let's begin. The objective of today's expedition, to locate the soul preservation site of the stealth fighter and resurrect him. As stated in the notice, he continued, we're looking for a frontline warrior. To begin the evaluation, please lift the wooden barrel in front of you. We can't see your stats unless we're in the same party, so this is just a basic strength check. You'll need at least 15 strength to throw it like Vertanen. Not as easy as it looks. Those who pass will proceed to the next skill test. Show us your ability as a warrior, something like a shield charge or taunt. So, who wants to go first? A few applicants stood in tense silence. I don't even have a single skill yet, why are the requirements so high? Aren't we all just rookies? Can I even lift that thing? The boy noticed some people backing out after hearing about the skill test. In this world, warriors, archers, and rogues had to acquire their skills from special fountains hidden within the maze. Owning a skill proved you'd survived and conquered at least one section of the dungeon. Yurnal, clearly anxious, whispered, "I haven't learned any skills yet." The boy gave her a calm smile. "It's all right. You'll pick them up soon." At that moment, agitation spread among the applicants. "Are you kidding us?" one barked. "You think you have the right to be this picky?" "Yeah, just because you survived one dungeon trip doesn't make you some big shot," another muttered. "Move aside, would you?" A deep voice cut through the commotion. A large lizard creature appeared behind the man who'd been complaining. "If you're done here, Bernard, kindly step aside." Gasp rippled through the crowd. "A lizard knight from the church. He's applying too. But he operates on the second floor. What's he doing down here on the first?" The boy immediately recognized the figure. "Just as I thought, he's from the Nathanael Church." They would never ignore a case like the stealth fighter. Tears streamed from the lizard's eyes. "Is this truly your will, my lord? I cannot stand idly by while such a poor soul suffers. I must purify him right here, right now." Another swordsman stepped forward from the back. "I thought the goal was to resurrect the guy. What's this lunatic even talking about? Who are you supposed to be?" The man looked straight ahead and introduced himself with solemn clarity. "My name is Hijikata, Sword Saint. I'm an adventurer operating on the third floor, and I'm searching for a missing friend. If reviving this stealth fighter can help me find him, then this may be my only lead." The boy stared at him, calculating. "A tank from the third floor. That'd be perfect. But after this mission he'll probably return to his old group. What I need is someone who'll stick with me long term." He began to sink into thought again. Just then, a voice shouted nearby, cutting through the tension. "Wait, hold on a second. Please let me have this interview," said the man, tall and broad-shouldered, his bald head gleaming under the light. The people nearby turned to look, clearly unimpressed. "A monk? Don't tell me you're trying to compete with us," one of them muttered. "I have to get into this party, no matter what." The boy glanced at the man, a bit surprised. "A monk?" he thought. "Even rarer than a holy knight." The man quickly bowed his head and spoke with urgency. "Please, just give me a chance. I'm begging you." He broke into tears as he continued, his voice choked with emotion. "Sneak attack, he was my teammate." The grief in his words made it clear this wasn't just a request, it was desperation. Amos couldn't stop crying, blaming himself over and over. "It's all my fault, he died, because I let him go off on his own." He had once been praised as the strongest adventurer on the first floor, a master of ambush tactics. Back then, Aston had still been laughing and joking with his teammates, even though everyone in the group felt a deep sense of guilt toward him. "We were just a low-tier party operating only on the first floor, yet he stuck with us for 3 years, not because he had to, but because he felt comfortable with us. That comfort, though, turned into guilt on our end. We all knew it wasn't right to keep someone so talented tied to our small group. Eventually the pressure became impossible to ignore. More and more adventurers from all over tried to recruit Aston into their own parties. He faced all that attention and pressure alone, but never showed the slightest sign of fear. The rest of us tried to reason with him countless times. You don't have to waste your talent here with us. We can't move on to the second floor together, but we'll support you no matter what." But he always brushed it off with a sheepish smile, as if he already understood and accepted everything. "I really miss you guys," Aston had once said with an awkward grin. Then, disaster struck. 3 weeks later, our party was ambushed. The enemy had meticulously prepared for the attack, even going so far as to seal off the exit gate, trapping us inside. But fate hadn't completely abandoned us. One member managed to break through and escape, using their last breath to send a desperate plea to the Adventurers Guild. That very moment, Aston, who had received the message, charged straight through the newly reopened gate that led to the labyrinth's first floor. No hesitation. No second thoughts. By the time he arrived, Amos and the others had already been attacked. Amos was the only one left alive, surrounded, cornered, and ready to die alongside his fallen comrades. Just as Amos was about to give up, the sealed door behind him burst open with a thunderous crash. And there stood Aston with a deranged smile on his face. From the second he appeared, it was like he'd lost all sense of self. Without any hesitation or reason, he flew into a blind frenzy, tearing into the bandits like a savage beast. Amos, frozen in fear, could only run away, leaving Aston alone in the carnage. "I was terrified, and I ran away," Amos admitted with unwavering resolve. "That's why I have every reason to join this team to help bring his soul back." Calum, listening quietly, rubbed his chin and nodded thoughtfully. "It's rare. You usually have to go far deeper into the dungeon to even encounter one, a wandering boss. He had also noticed something was off. For one to appear on the very first floor, it was unprecedented. Amos stepped forward, continuing in a strained voice. From that day on, not a single moment has passed where I haven't regretted it. If we hadn't let Aston leave the group, he cradled Aston's lifeless body in his arms, overcome with sorrow. If only I had stopped you, none of this would have happened. Don't tell me you really went back into that place to save worthless people like us. Did you sell your soul to the dungeon master, Aston? When Amos finally stood face to face with him, he couldn't hold back his tears. You gave up your soul to save us and me? I just wanted to run. I left you behind. He dropped to his knees before Aston. I'm sorry. Please don't forgive me. I don't deserve it. Moved by what he heard, Hijikata stepped forward with a decision. We should choose the monk. He deserves a chance to make things right. I'll withdraw and let him take my place. But Bernard, standing nearby, was having none of it. Hold on a damn second. Who gave you the authority to decide that? He exploded with fury, yelling, using some sob story to sway the soul contract bearer? What a touching tale, but let's be fair, shall we? He pointed at the orc barrel in front of them. Fine. If you can break that orc barrel, I'll accept you. Calum stood off to the side, silently observing the entire scene. Most monks relied on magic and had very low strength stats. But something caught his attention. He remembered he, too, had once been a monk. And before he could finish the thought, Imus slammed his fist down and shattered the orc barrel into pieces. He wasn't just any monk, he was a power-type monk. Exactly what Calum had been searching for. Bernard was so stunned by the display that his jaw nearly hit the ground. Time passed quickly, and soon, back at Calum's base, he looked around at his assembled team and said, "Looks like we finally have everything. Imus, make sure everyone's fully prepared before the expedition begins." Imus scratched his head and nodded. Of course. I'll be away from home for a while, so I should probably talk to my wife too. Calum agreed right away. All right. Go ahead. He then turned to the others. Yurnal, head back to the dorms with Aston. Yurnal, despite getting his hair bitten by Aston, still tried to check in. And what about you, Calum? Calum replied calmly, already thinking ahead. I'll stop by the Magic Academy. There are a few things I need to take care of before heading into the dungeon. On his way there, Calum couldn't stop thinking. If there really was a group of possessed individuals hiding within the academy, they could become his greatest threat. He silently reflected. He managed to link multiple arcane tomes with rare combinations, accepted the most difficult task from Professor Isilov without hesitation. Still, Kalam had complete faith in Imus. Out of all the candidates, he had chosen a 40-something tanky monk to rely on. Just believe in the badass monk. The great doors creaked open slowly. Calum stood alone before them, a grin curling at the corners of his lips. I deliberately made a loud, suspicious scene. By now, they must be convinced I'm possessed. If I want to survive here, I need to make sure they remember one thing. I'm not just some dangerous host to a foreign spirit. I'm a genius mage. Calum stared ahead at the man waiting for him, and thought to himself, and the one who'll help me prove that is you, Professor Meldini. Meldini raised his voice once more. Calum, is it true that you successfully fused spellbooks? Calum nodded calmly. Yes, I did combine them. Is there a problem, Professor? But Meldini pointed a doubtful finger right at him. Most people fail at that step. Either you're absurdly lucky, or a thought crossed Calum's mind. He's testing me further. Fine, let's raise the stakes. He spoke slowly. Actually, I didn't just do a double fusion. I pulled off a triple fusion. Meldini broke into a cold sweat. What? A triple fusion? He couldn't hold it in and practically shouted in front of the crowd, "Are you mocking us? That's impossible unless you've been blessed by the god of wisdom." Professor Dahlstream, ever the calm one, chuckled and said kindly, "Meldini, perhaps he truly was blessed." But Meldini wouldn't hear it. "This is no time for jokes, Dahlstream. Even a single fusion is already rare. 3? That's only possible if you're possessed." Isilov, startled, stepped forward. "Hold on, Meldini. What do you plan to do?" Meldini raised his wand. "I'm casting a truth detection spell right now. We'll see once and for all if he's possessed." He furrowed his brows and muttered in a low voice, "If I'm wrong, I'll apologize and compensate you properly. But if you are possessed, I'll end you on the spot." Calum stood tall, unshaken. Stop wasting time, Professor. You already know the answer, don't you? That threw Meldini off, but he proceeded with the spell. Truth detection activate. Calum couldn't hold back anymore. He shouted, "You just wanted to hear me admit it myself, didn't you?" Then, with a clear voice he declared, "I am a soul from another world." At that moment, a system voice rang out, "Hourglass activated. Your turn." The entire hall fell dead silent. No one dared to speak. Calum sighed and thought, so this was bound to happen eventually. That hot-headed old man just forced it out of me. He looked Meldini straight in the eye, determined. "Now open your eyes and take a good look." If there really is a group of possessed individuals hiding in this academy, several professors were visibly shaken, jaws dropped, then this might be our best shot at confirming it. Calum scanned the room, analyzing each of them. Isilov is clearly on my side. But Meldini, he's like a demon in human skin. Then he looked toward another familiar face. Dahlstream stone-faced as always. Still unreadable. But there was one professor who looked especially excited. That's Professor Enver. He seems overly thrilled. Yeah, I'll need to keep a close eye on him. The system chimed again, your turn. Cool down, 3 seconds. A flicker of realization crossed Calum's mind. Alright, time to lie. The Abyssal Labyrinth was the best damn game I've ever played. The system turned complete. A surge of power coursed through Calum's body, making him cry out in pain. Seeing him collapse, Isilov panicked. That's the wrong reaction. Calum isn't possessed. Meldini, now trembling, had no choice but to admit it. He's truly not a possessed soul. Calum, still weak, looked up at the faces before him. It's okay, Professor. No hard feelings, damn, that hurt like hell. Time passed quickly. Before he knew it, a week had gone by. The moment Calum sat up in bed, Urnil rushed over. You're finally up, are you feeling better? Calum nodded. Yeah, I'm good now. He thought to himself, I was unconscious for 2 whole days after that mess. But it wasn't all for nothing. Meldini may be hot-headed, but he did offer a sincere apology. The professor had come to him, remorseful and repentant. I owe you a real apology. Take this as a token of my regret. Thank you, Professor, Calum had replied, finally able to breathe easier. Clearing my name of that possession accusation, that alone was worth it. The gift Meldini gave him was a magical item called the Compass, a legendary great artifact. Its first ability, detect chests in the labyrinth. Other skills would unlock progressively over time. Calum stared at the object in his hand, quietly amazed. I still don't know what else it can do, but getting a legendary item like this, it's insane. Urnil, he called out. Ready, she answered immediately. Imus, he continued. Yes, came the quick reply. And, ambush, he said, addressing the last member. There was a hesitant mumble, but it was a yes nonetheless. Calum's eyes lit up. All right. Everyone ready? With that, the group stepped forward into their next adventure. Let's go, he grinned. Time to enter the dungeon. Elsewhere, Calum's crimson eyes lit up with surprise. What the hell is going on? He thought. Puzzled. Up ahead, faint light flickered around the dungeon's entrance. A group of people stood there, chatting quietly. Calum leaned toward the person beside him and whispered, Urnil, can you hear what they're saying? Urnil listened carefully, brow furrowed. Not much, she replied uncertainly. Just some chatter, nothing clear. Suddenly, the group ahead turned around. It was clear they'd noticed Calum's party approaching. A woman stepped forward, waving in a deliberately casual manner. Oh hey there, adventurers, huh? Got a minute before you head in? Calum frowned, already running scenarios in his mind. Bandits. Probably waiting here to shake down rookie adventurers. As he studied the 3 smug-looking people before him, his suspicion only deepened. This is why I insisted on going in first as soon as the gate opened. The scratches across Calum's eye began to bleed again. He gritted his teeth and cursed under his breath. This is such a pain. Then one of the strangers spoke up. Hey, what have you got in that bag? Calum didn't answer the question. Instead, he threw it back at them. Why do you care? The woman sauntered closer, pretending to be concerned. Oh, come on now. We're just looking out for you newbies, that's all. But her eyes betrayed her as they narrowed with a sly, threatening gleam. There are a lot of bandits hiding in the dungeon, you know. If you're carrying something valuable, Big Sis here can keep it safe for you. What do you say? Just then, Amos stepped forward. His massive frame caused the woman to recoil instinctively. But Amos didn't try to intimidate, his tone remained even. "No need, young lady." Ignoring her paling face and fearful eyes, he calmly added, "Our team leader is smart enough to turn the tables on petty crooks like you." Realizing her bluff had failed, the woman spun around quickly. "W said anything about that? We were just giving some friendly advice," she stammered before hurrying off with her companions. Callum watched her retreat with a single glance, but chose to remain silent. The shady group disappeared into the dungeon entrance. One of them called back mockingly, "We're heading in. Do whatever you want." Callum's team followed soon after. Someone asked hesitantly, "Hey Callum, those people back there, they were really bandits, weren't they?" "Still moving forward." Callum replied calmly, "Don't worry, you're nil. Amos could have taken them head on if needed." Then he turned to her and smiled. "And if anyone were tailing us, you would have noticed, right? No need to worry." Suddenly, a scream echoed from deeper within. "Help me." Kalim's eyes widened in alarm as he spotted a woman stumbling toward them. Not even 5 minutes, he thought, exasperated. "Bandits." The woman burst out of the passage screaming in terror. They're chasing me. They're after me." She ran toward Callum's group in a complete panic, eyes brimming with tears as she pleaded desperately, "Please, I'm begging you." Recognizing the woman as the same person who had just tried to rob them earlier, Callum's suspicion flared. He questioned coldly, "You're saying it was an ambush? And why exactly should we care?" The woman immediately dropped to her knees in front of them, her voice trembling with fear. "Please, I was exploring the dungeon when they suddenly attacked." Callum glared down at her, his anger simmering beneath the surface. "If this were still just a game, I'd have killed her on the spot, no questions asked." He didn't lower his wand as he asked, "Didn't you try to steal from us this morning?" Her eyes darted nervously, clearly shaken. I won't deny I was rude. But we didn't expect an ambush like that. Please, I'm begging you, just spare me." Yurnal stood nearby, wide-eyed at the scene unfolding before her. Worried, she softly called out, "Callum." He lowered his head slightly, trying to collect his thoughts. It was a tough call. Maybe she was telling the truth, but trusting anyone in a dungeon like this was sheer madness. Then, in one swift motion, he pointed his wand directly at the woman's forehead. His voice dropped low and sharp. "If you want to live, turn around and go back. I'll count to 3. The woman's body trembled as she fell deeper into desperation. "Please, if I go back there, I'll die." Callum's voice remained steady. 1. She kept pleading, sobbing just once, "Please have mercy." But he ignored her completely. 2. Realizing there was no negotiating with him, she finally gave up. Her voice quivered as she said, "Okay, I'll go." She began backing away, still stealing glances at Callum, terrified he might strike her down anyway. "Just please, don't cast anything on me." Suddenly, Yurnal's ears twitched. She looked alarmed, as if she'd picked up on something. Callum immediately turned when she spoke up. She was pointing into the distance with a look of dread. "Callum, someone's coming. They're running this way." The woman, who had barely taken a few steps, hadn't left the area yet. She pointed in the same direction, eyes wide with terror. "They're here. They're coming." Panic surged in her voice as she darted behind Callum's group. "It's here." Amos tensed, raising his weapon as he shouted, "4 of them." Callum, still uneasy, turned back and muttered, "Told you something was coming, Yurnal. How many?" Before she could answer, an arrow came whistling through the air. Amos reacted instantly, striking it out of the air with his sword. Callum's eyes locked on the attackers in the distance, tension building as he analyzed the situation. 4 of them, maybe the ambush really was legit. In his moment of distraction, he didn't notice the woman quietly shifting behind him. Suddenly, her expression twisted, no longer frightened, but feral and vicious. She planted her foot firmly, ready to pivot into something far more dangerous. By the time Callum realized what was happening, it was already too late. The woman had her wand pressed against his neck, a smug grin curling across her face as she taunted, "How's that for an Academy Award performance, sweetheart?" Up ahead, Amos noticed Callum was in danger and called out anxiously, "Callum." The tip of the wand flared with a sudden glow as the woman began casting a spell, Jester's confounding hex. Sensing the situation was spiraling fast, Callum shouted, "I'm fine. Focus on the front, Amos." All around them, enchanted gears began to spin, and a system notification flashed before Callum's eyes. "Hourglass activated. Your turn begins." The enemy raiders charged forward. Callum's group quickly fell into a defensive formation. Clutching a scroll tightly in his hand, Calum muttered to himself. That was close. Fury burned in his eyes as he glared at the woman behind him. Time to calmly take these bastards apart, one by one. That mage is just bait, planted right in the middle of our formation. His thoughts raced as he looked at the treacherous woman beside him. Instead of distracting Imus the defensive anchor, they went after me and Yurnal first. Smart. They used a spell disruption skill to scramble our incantations. Just as he suspected, when he began casting a lightning spell, what appeared instead were a few harmless little flowers. Calum tensed. Disabling me, his gaze shifted toward Yurnal, who was now struggling against magical interference. His worry deepened. If they incapacitate Yurnal, she's weak in close combat, and then isolate and bring down Imus, it's over. Rage continued to build inside him. Calum's mind sharpened as he analyzed the enemy's intent. They gambled that I wouldn't be able to fight back after a failed sneak attack. Gripping his wand tighter, regret washed over him. Damn it. I should have zapped them the moment I sensed something was off. But he quickly shook off the thought, lowering his head as he reminded himself. Now's not the time to dwell on mistakes. One slip, and the whole team dies here. Suddenly, a memory surfaced just days ago in the dorms. Yurnal had helped him uncover something crucial. He glanced at the system interface. The hourglass showed a 60-second countdown. While the hourglass is flipped, cooldowns continue running. The corner of Calum's mouth lifted into a barely noticeable smirk. In real-time combat, 60 seconds is more than enough to die. Yurnal glanced over, confused by the scroll in his hand, but Calum remained focused. But I've got the hourglass shielding me. He tightened his grip on the scroll, silently thankful. Good thing I prepped this ahead of time. The scroll's properties appeared. Status effect timer reduction scroll. Reduces all active status effects to 60 seconds. Side effect, temporary fatigue. Activation in 5, 4. Watching the timer count down, Kalim's smirk deepened. 3 seconds left. You're finished, bastard. As the system ticked down the final seconds -2, 1, Calum seized the moment and shouted shockwave. Instantly, a notification appeared. Turn ended. Cooldown, 60 seconds. A bolt of lightning erupted from his wand, crashing straight into the woman behind him. The sheer force of the strike stunned the rest of the raiders. For a brief moment no one moved. As the crackling light faded, the woman stumbled and dropped to her knees, disbelief etched across her face. How did you? Calum stared down at her with a cold gaze. Thanks, that really cleared my head. His tone was calm, but his words cut deep. Terrified, the woman stammered. Who were you? Calum didn't answer. Instead, he raised his wand and pointed it directly at her. Looks like my strategy was spot on. With trash like you, death is the only fitting response. Realizing what was about to happen, the woman screamed, panicked, wait no. Please. But Calum was already walking away when an inferno erupted behind him. The system prompt echoed in his mind. Temporary hourglass acquired. The werewolf among the enemy group stared, wide-eyed and trembling. That was a silent spell. My spell jamming ability, why didn't it work? Calum raised both hands, energy building around him once again. The system promptly chimed in. Turn-based hourglass activated. All enemies frozen for 1 turn by effect. Blood frenzy. Action points granted. The rest of the raiders were visibly shaken. Calum eyed them and thought, a controller, and a dwarf? His sharp gaze narrowed. So that's why there were 4 sets of tracks. As Yurnal looked on in astonishment, Calum launched his next attack, calling out to her lightning bolt. Yurnal aimed for the dwarf. He directed his wand at the cluster of enemies and commanded, Dustburst. A powerful explosion tore through the ground. The werewolf bolted, abandoning his comrades to the flames. The system announced, action points depleted. Turn ended. The dwarf controller writhed under the effects of the lightning spell, leaving him defenseless. Without hesitation, Yurnal struck the dwarf down. The werewolf, glancing back, froze at the sight. What is this? He collapsed to the ground, trembling, as Imus's towering frame loomed closer and closer. But Imus didn't spare him a glance. He simply lowered his head and began chanting. Watching this, the dwarf panicked. Trembling, he pleaded, please. Please let me go. Calum didn't even look in his direction. His voice grew darker. I warned you. I don't hesitate. The dwarf's eyes widened in terror as Calum pressed the tip of his wand against the man's forehead. Raising his hand, Calem's expression turned grim. I show no mercy. Lightning bolt. The blaze crackled to life, casting flickering warmth that pushed back the chill of the dark night. Calem, drained to his limits, drifted off into sleep, while his companions sat around idly, bored with nothing to do. Urnal sat in silence, burying herself. I'm so pathetic I couldn't do anything. I'm no better than a mindless sneak attacker. She slapped her cheeks gently, trying to refocus. Come on, Urnal, pull it together. You've got to be the kind of teammate they're proud to fight alongside. When Calem finally stirred, he was still groggy. Sorry, I must have passed out. Maybe the scroll had some side effects. Urnal started toward him with concern. Are you okay? He didn't want her to worry. I'm fine, he said, waving her off gently. Then his attention shifted to Imus. Wait, what's he doing? I found some loot on the ground, Amos replied while rummaging through a pile of stolen gear. Figured I'd check the bandits for anything useful. Wanna help me pick a few things to bring along? Calem gave a small nod. Smart move considering the situation. I'd love to grab some valuable stuff too, but if it's too heavy we'll have to leave it. Let's just take what's essential. He did a quick mental rundown. 5 health potions, 1 cooldown reducer, perfect. Then he took a closer look at the scroll in his hand. This thing's no ordinary item. These bandits had some decent gear after all. A necromancy summoning scroll? Not bad. Next, Calem's eyes narrowed as he noticed a strange marking on his wand. Telepathy. I should get it appraised, but maybe. Without hesitation, he began testing the summoning spell. Should I give this wand a name? Sounds kind of lame. He shook the thought off. They needed to leave. Anyway, let's wrap this up and get moving. Just then Urnal seemed to recall something. Wait. Calem turned to her, confused. What is it? I heard something from your side pouch, she said, eyes widening. He paused and checked to be sure. My belt pouch. No way, it's Urnal flinched. That sound again, yes, it's that. Calem quickly reassured her. It's the compass Professor Melini gave me. He explained, it's supposed to help track down hidden treasure. Amos looked stunned. You mean like those secret chests in dungeon rooms? Calem considered it. Could be, but for now, our top priority is still reviving the stealth squad. He looked back at Urnal and added gently, let's not overthink things for now. And Urnil, you don't need to react to every little noise. Okay? She lowered her gaze. But listening, that's the only thing I'm actually good at. Calem offered a soft smile. You've already done more than enough. She turned to Calem and asked hesitantly, so, should I still report things like, say, the sound of running water? Calem froze, completely caught off guard. Running water? He wasn't even sure how to respond. Urnal, trying to help him visualize, added, like, a stream or maybe a fountain. Calem suddenly raised his voice, visibly irritated. Where exactly did you hear it coming from? From what he knew, certain classes like rogues or warriors were trained to recognize phenomena known as blessing fountains, magical fountains that appeared randomly inside dungeons. Calem, being quite knowledgeable, recalled the legend. Ancient gods consumed by the dungeon had become part of its very fabric, and they used these fountains to bestow powers upon adventurers. Even he was surprised by the unexpected discovery. Thanks to Urnil, we found the fountain. Nicely done, he said, genuinely impressed. Urnil lit up, thrilled to finally feel useful. Really? Calem glanced back at the group. Do you two want to try getting a skill from the fountain? He wasn't overly confident. I've tried before, he admitted. Never got a skill though. Maybe this time. Urnil, still riding the high of her small victory, beamed. I finally did something right. Calem, aware of the mechanics behind these blessings, knew there were conditions, attributes and weapon proficiency both played a role in determining success. He turned to Imus. Have you ever tried it with your current weapon? Imus shook his head. No, not with this one. Calem encouraged him. Then trust me, give it a shot. He mentally gauged Imus' stats, strength around 15, decent staff mastery. He should qualify. Amos nodded. Alright if you say so. With cautious optimism, he leaned over and submerged his face into the fountain's waters. His eyebrows shot up almost immediately. It worked. Imus straightened up, stunned. I don't believe it, I actually got a skill. Calem's curiosity was piqued. Told you. What is it? Imus shouted, exhilarated, earth shatter pulse. Calem turned to Urnil next. Your turn. He looked forward to seeing what she'd gain. She's level 6 like me. Agility's at least 13. should be enough. Urinal was practically vibrating with excitement. I got one too. Triple strike. Kalim, your turn. He pointed to himself, a bit skeptical. Mages don't usually get anything from fountains like these. Urinal still clung to a shred of hope. You never know. Kalim decided to give it a try, just this once. Why not? This isn't a game after all. I am curious, I don't even know what it looks like inside the fountain. He was the only one who kept his eyes open as he lowered his face into the water. Suddenly, something white appeared before his eyes. A system notification popped up. You have activated the Blessing Fountain. Class: Mage Weapon, Turn-Based Hourglass Proficiency, Basic Attributes: Strength none, Agility none, Intelligence 15, Endurance none, Dexterity none. What is this? Callum stared at the floating system panel, confused. Weapon, Turn-Based Hourglass. That's my weapon. Then, another message: your intelligence exceeds 10 points. You may now choose a starting skill for the turn-based hourglass. Please select 1. Vector Shift passively allows free movement of your wand or staff without consuming action points. Cannot interact physically with objects. 2. Time Merchant consumes 1 grain from the hourglass to reduce cooldown or debuff duration by 1 minute. Maximum 60 seconds. Cooldown 1 hour. 3. Memory Editor opens your spellbook during your turn to swap spell slots. Each swap costs 1 action point. Must be activated during Hourglass turn. Cooldown 1 hour. 4. Mind Command actively spend 2 action points to command a lower ranked ally, regardless of trust. If the order contradicts their personality, they'll enter a temporary state of mental instability after carrying it out. Cooldown 1 hour. What the hell, all 4 of these are insane. Kalim started weighing his options. Alright, no need to overthink, just rule out the least useful one first. That much is obvious. As he lifted his face from the water, a final message appeared: skill learned. Vector Shift. Urinal, who'd been anxiously watching, finally relaxed. You okay? I thought you drowned for a second. I'm fine, Kalim replied casually. Totally normal. The system gave him a new prompt: hourglass activated. Your turn. He gave his wand a light flick to test it. No action point cost, it works. He grinned inwardly. This is nuts. Turn ended. Alright, he called to the group. Let's move. The team gathered to discuss strategy. For sneak attack, things were pretty straightforward: best way to avoid traps. But suddenly Imus went completely silent. She stared at him. What's wrong, Imus? He held up a small charm. I always carry this with me. It's from my wife. She was worried. It's been a long time since I last went on an expedition. Urinal looked at him in disbelief. Wait, now that you mention it, how did you even meet your wife? A monk getting married. Don't ask me. Amos replied with a faint smile. We met through the Adventurers Guild. Actually, she's the one who introduced me to sneak attack. He chuckled, helpless against his wife's will. She knows how much I owe him, so she gave her blessing for this trip, even though there's no reward in it for her. Urinal beamed. She sounds amazing. I made a promise to myself, Imus said solemnly, that I'd come back alive no matter what. Kalim didn't like the sound of that at all. Hey, don't say stuff like that, man. You're jinxing yourself. Don't tempt fate, brother monk. Suddenly, someone stopped walking. Aston let out a low growl, as if he'd sensed something nearby, then bolted ahead. Urinal blinked. Where's sneak attack running off to? Aston dropped to his knees and began clawing at a brick on the ground. Kalim's eyes lit up. We found it. It reacted instinctively to his soul. Imus hesitated. His soul. Then that must mean, he came to a realization. Yes. The space between dungeon floors. Floor 1.5. Urinal blinked, confused. Wait, what? 1.5. Still looking dazed, Amos explained. There were rumors among adventurers about something like this. I'd heard whispers, but I never thought it was real. Kalim nodded firmly. It's real. That's where sneak attack's soul is. Urinal looked shocked. Then the entrance must be. Right then, Urinal accidentally stepped on something. It clicked underfoot. Oh no, I think I just triggered something. Kalim, what do we do? Imus's eyes widened. Kalim, it's collapsing. We need to get out of here. But Kalim remained completely calm. Relax. It's fine. He gave Urinal a nod. Thanks to you, we found the entrance faster. The ground began to rumble. A hidden path revealed itself. A gateway shimmered into view in the dark dungeon. Calum smiled brightly. Let's go. Floor 1.5. A brilliant beam of blue light tore through the stillness, spiraling into the void as if opening a gateway from another world. From within that radiant glow, a figure slowly emerged. A young boy standing nearby widened his vivid blue eyes, stunned speechless. He could barely believe what he was seeing. In the distance stood massive fortress-like structures, towering with pride in the middle of the desert, but their forms were twisted, as if some invisible force had crushed them like clay. Yurnal's eyes flew open and her jaw dropped. This place is ancient. It looks exactly like a game setting. The two people behind her showed no reaction, their faces calm. Her gaze settled on a fixed point as a thought struck her. Maybe that's why I can't hear anything. Calum stepped past her and turned back with a warning. From here on, stay quiet. We don't want to alert the sentries. Sentries? Yurnal asked, confused. Thousands of monsters stood in formation, border guards. Dungeon Floor 1.5's creatures were deadly, not because of individual strength, but because they attacked in coordinated swarms. Luckily, they usually remain clustered around their camps, so staying silent and slipping past was the safest approach. All four of them moved carefully, each step slow and deliberate. Calum brought the group's focus back to their goal. Like I said, fighting would put us at a disadvantage. We grab the relic that holds Sneak Attack's soul, then get out. The knight cloaked an old wooden cabin in shadow. Calum reassured himself that they wouldn't get lost. He had played through this part in the game. The entire village had fallen into a hushed silence beneath the darkness. He stepped forward and suddenly stopped. We're here. In front of them stood an ancient shrine with sealed doors. Calum introduced it with quiet reverence, the Sanctuary of Souls. Placing one hand on the door, he smiled inwardly. So far, everything's exactly how I remember it. The door creaked open slowly. Calum scanned the interior. No signs of danger, at least not yet. Looked safe. They stepped inside. A long carpet stretched out beneath their feet, muffling their footsteps in the silence. Yurnal glanced around curiously as they walked. On each side were neat rows of jars, piquing her interest. What are these? Sacred relics, Calum explained. But they're all empty. Behind them, Amos asked. There's so many, how are we supposed to know which one holds Sneak Attack's soul? Calum, eyes locked ahead, murmured. That one, probably. He raised his hand and pointed to the source of a faint green glow in the distance. The only one that's lit up. A vibrant green light poured from a small opening. Amos squinted and shielded his eyes. Are you sure that one really has Sneak Attack's soul in it? Calum strode confidently toward the glowing relic, but he didn't forget to glance back and answer, yes. But once it's disturbed, the monsters will rush in to reclaim it. So we'll bring the relic back to floor 1 and revive Sneak Attack there. Amos lit up. Perfect. Let's get started. Just as the two were about to move out, Yurnal raised her voice to stop them. Calum, wait. She pointed toward the jars. One of them, tucked off to the side, was also glowing green. There's another one, she said. It's lit up too. The two glowing relics were far apart, one placed high on a platform, the other resting on the ground. They all hesitated. What do we do with both of them? Calum's expression tightened in panic, and Amos burst out, what the hell? That wasn't glowing earlier. He leaned in close to Calum and whispered urgently, Calum, what's going on? Don't tell me the dungeon master sealed the soul of another adventurer too. Calum tensed, thinking hard. That can't be. I'm the strongest rookie on floor 1. There's no reason the dungeon master would go after someone else unless. There's another explanation. Suddenly, Yurnal cried out, panicked Calum. Someone's running this way. His expression darkened instantly. Jaw clenched, eyes filled with worry. That means an adventurer just died on floor 1.5. Without hesitation, Calum spun around and sprinted back toward the entrance, shouting, run. Remus, someone called out. I can't just leave Aston behind. Remus protested. Calum shot back coldly, forget him. He's not going to make it. We have to retreat to the sanctuary. They dashed for the door but were cut off. Grotesque monsters of indiscernible shapes blocked their path. Calum froze, his eyes locked onto something. Recognition dawned. Bernard. A lizard-like figure stepped forward, calling out his name. In that moment, Calum seemed to snap back to himself and let out a relieved breath. Bernard immediately launched into a scolding. Callum, you left the door wide open. Do you have any idea how dangerous this place is? Callum scratched his head, muttering to himself, wasn't dangerous, until you guys showed up. Bernard glanced toward the door and gave a grave warning. Monsters are incoming. Get ready for battle. Callum grumbled under his breath, you lunatics led them right to us. Despite his frustration, curiosity got the better of him. Why are you even here? Bernard replied calmly. The church assigned us to purge the dungeon. We finally made it this far. He raised his voice, filled with conviction. This is no coincidence. It's divine guidance from Nathaniel. Then he knelt, bathed in a ray of light that streamed from above. He proclaimed with absolute certainty, just as I predicted, everything that's happened was part of Nathaniel's grand design. Before he could finish, a voice rang out, sharp and commanding, that's enough, Bernard. A towering man entered with a scrawny boy in tow. The man braced the door and called into the shrine, they're here. Get the barrier up now. The lizard man stammered, oh okay. Bernard sprang into action. A golden light enveloped his hand as he shouted, perma-barrier. He thrust his hand forward, instantly conjuring a sturdy wall of energy that sealed off the passage. Turning back to the group, Bernard called out, we'll end this fight right here, against the demons. Callum, please support our team. Callum's face darkened with fury, his cheeks flushed red in frustration. Oh, for the love of... This is exactly the kind of crap they should have called Bung King Kit for. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? But in the end he sighed and muttered to himself, fine. I'll make it out of this damn dungeon alive if it kills me. He stepped to the rear of the group and called out, Bernard, can you follow my lead for a while? Bernard raised an eyebrow. And why should I do that? Callum shot back flatly. Because you're the one who lured the monsters here in the first place. Bernard froze, clearly taken aback. His eyes lit up and he nodded, surprisingly agreeable. Fair enough. I guess we really did drag you into this. Your orders, Captain. Callum smirked. What a cooperative little lizard. He held a scroll in his hand, mentally rearranging the plan. Change of strategy, will have to launch the sneak resurrection strike right here. His gaze shifted toward Isilov. Otherwise, we'll never make it out alive. First, I'll use the eternal slumber scroll Professor Isilov gave me. Just then, Isilov let out a guttural shout, rest in peace. Callum clenched his jaw, thinking to himself, for the next few minutes, while the necromancy ritual takes form, I have to guard our sneak attack team with everything I've got. Isilov collapsed to his knees by the jars of the saints, his mouth releasing wisps of black mist. Callum barked an order, Urinal. I'm lowering the relic with remote manipulation, catch it. Got it, she responded firmly. Callum flicked his wand, levitating the glowing jar down from above. Transfer. He turned toward Bernard. For better coordination, tell us your combat skills. The mushroom-headed guy scoffed. Oh? So now the Floor 2 trained elite team has to take orders from your last-minute assembly? The muscle-bound man chimed in too. I only take orders from our Captain Bernard. Callum groaned. Seriously? This is what we're doing now. They all turned to Bernard and asked, so Bernard, what's the plan for today's battle? Bernard looked Callum dead in the eyes and declared, obviously we charge in with valor. Callum raised an eyebrow. And what happens after that? He pressed further. Didn't one of your teammates already die? The three of them fell silent, their expressions darkening. Bernard finally answered, yeah. We lost someone not long ago. Callum seized the moment. Then follow my orders. He added a firm, unwavering promise that caught them all off guard. I swear I'll bring him back and finish the mission. Before anyone could respond, Callum surged ahead. Let me prove I mean it. He pointed behind him. Look back there. Urinal was cradling a glowing green relic in her arms. When someone dies between floors, their soul automatically gets sealed into a relic. Bernard and his two companions looked visibly shaken. After the sneak attack relic lit up, another glow had appeared and Callum calmly confirmed, that's Aston, without a doubt. A sly grin spread across his face. Which means we're bringing him back right here. Bernard asked, I trust the church will give proper rewards afterward, yes? The mushroom-headed guy suddenly shouted, if resurrection is really possible, if you're not lying. He stepped forward, standing before the group. My skills are penetrating arrow and bouncing missile. The barbarian has a power ram and wild leap. So, his voice softened. Please. Bring my teammate home. Calum gave a crooked smile, eyes glowing red with fierce confidence, and nodded once. Got it. The barrier began to crack and rumble. Bernard quickly warned. The shield and the gate both are about to break. Calum slid into a fighting stance and looked around at the others. Then I guess it's time we begin, isn't it?